Chapter 421. Minutes earlier in the Great Plains. I watch from the perspective of one of my body doubles as my main body falls into the Titan's domain. My last thoughts before creating these clones were to notify myself at the halfway mark, and another 2 to 3 minutes before it looks like the Titan will leave through the rift. Both body doubles wait patiently, air-stepping high in the sky to watch from above as the Titan slowly makes its way across the 2-kilometer stretch of rolling grasslands toward the closing rift. I stand in silence as minutes pass, and I know weeks and months are going by within the creature below us. In just under 13 minutes, it reaches the halfway point between where it started and the rift at the back of the dungeon. The body double to my right side looks over to me and speaks using telepathy. I hear my own voice ring in my head. I'm off. I'll use my self-destruct unique buff in another dungeon as to not make too much noise here. Wouldn't want it changing speed with another mana disturbance in the area. I nod back, and in the blink of an eye, my other double dungeon walks away to send the first halfway mark signal to my original body. I'm still unsure if the signals are getting through, but as a double, I'll do my job to send the second message. I cross my arms and activate stealth, floating high in the sky above the Great Plains and watching the massive creature silently trudge along below me. My eyes keep darting back and forth from the monster to the rift, and can't help but realize the rate at which its closing seems to have slowed down. This is the opposite of what I assumed would happen, but the fact that I'm in full stealth mode and my other double just dungeon walked away may have put less stress on the rift itself to collapse. Even the approaching Titan's swinging arms are slowing, and its footsteps are becoming less rushed and constant. This is a good thing because my main body will have more time in the domain, but a bad thing because I may not know if the second message got interrupted for some odd reason. Thinking in the shoes of my main body, I'd most likely leave early just to be on the safe side. All I can do is wait and watch, then send the signal once it's actually time to leave. More minutes pass and the rate at which the rift is closing and the Titan approaches it slows even more, but comes to a steady pace once it's about 400 to 500 meters away. Just about 25 minutes has passed since my real body entered, so this was the perceived time of impact when I left. Now there seems to still be about 3 to 5 minutes remaining before it will begin to get close. I take a deep breath and watch for a full extra minute as the Titan slowly walks over the final rolling hill to get within a proper line of sight to the rift and begin to activate my Dungeon Walker skill to blip away, planning to use the same self-destruct feature as my other double. However, I stop myself as I see a faint red glow growing inside the black abyss of the Titan. It's only a matter of seconds before the crimson light begins to shine bright enough that it envelopes the entire Titan. The black blob of mass is now blood red, and I recognize the skill being used very easily. That's Ember's Plunderer skill. I guess there's no need for me to send the signal after all. My main body waited quite a long time but still played it safe and left before I sent a message. If my calculations are correct, I spent just over 5 months in there. A thin and dense blade of flames tears the red Titan in half, and a bright white release of light dissipates the creature into the air like it was never even there. Unlawfully taken from Royal Road, this story should be reported if seen on Amazon. The bright glow allows an incredible amount of excess MP into the dungeon, but it is quickly dissipated as the silhouette of a massive black-scaled dragon and a hunter in a black cloak and flaming sword remain in the wake of the defeated Titan. The only thing that throws me off is the eerie sense of there being no mana at all in this hunter. As the debris of the explosion disperses, I definitely see my main body standing next to Ember, but there's no mana signature coming off me at all. I even activate my all-seeing eye, and nothing comes up. It's like I'm an unawakened hunter. As the body double, I'm unable to use chi, so it's impossible for me to sense what is really going on here. But it seems as though Ember taught me well. I really learned mana suppression in 5 months and mastered it. I whisper under my breath. I wonder how much stronger I've really become. With a grin on my face, I start air-stepping over, but a wave of telepathy hits me from my main body as I see myself pointing toward the rift. Enter it. I'd like to see what's inside before it closes. I don't slow down for a moment and continue air-stepping over my real body and Ember to soar toward the rift. Good idea. As I fall closer, the rate at which the rift is closing speeds back up again. The fall of the last Titan just moments before it made it back has accelerated the closing speed, and by the time I plunge through into the deep black darkness, the rift is less than 2 meters in diameter and seems to have only tens of seconds left until it finally closes. With no fear at all, I step through the black abyss into another world, the place where these Titans spawned from. The world around me becomes dark, so I activate my buffs and light my hands with dim flames as my feet hit a hard, smooth floor. In the same moment as I squint my eyes and try to look around, the rift behind me closes and fully disappears, leaving me here trapped for good. I take a cautious breath, stepping forward and exploring the range of my light source. My initial surprise is that I'm not floating in an endless void of darkness like I assumed, but the mana in the air here is quite dense. As my light finally gets bright enough, I can see the walls and ceiling of an incredibly tall and long hallway. It's over 30 meters high and 10 meters wide, made of dark gray stone polished until glossy. When I activate my enemy detection skill, I don't get a single reading. My entire sensory system is screwed up and seems like a massive blotch of mana is scrambling everything. Even so, I walk forward full of curiosity, wondering what this hallway leads to and what hidden information I could unlock by venturing further in. Constantly absorbing mana from the atmosphere to keep my dim light going, I walk down the hall at a steady pace. Soon, I start running, air-stepping, and even using extreme speed to push myself further into the endless hall of darkness. Over half an hour passes, and multiple kilometers have been trekked before the faintest glow of another light source is visible to me in the distance. My eyes widen at the sight of it, and I deactivate all my flashy skills, turning stealth on, and continuing my march through the darkness with newfound vigor. It takes another 10 minutes to finally make it down the hall far enough to see the light expand into a dim archway. It looks as if it opens up into a much more well-lit setting. Maybe this was just a hidden entrance to a rift, and there's a colorful new world outside. As I get closer and closer, the dim white light source grows, but my enemy detection senses still give off the same scrambled reading. Now it may be even stronger than before, but it's hard to tell. Once I finally make it close enough to step outside, the sight before me is like nothing I ever would have imagined. I step out into an impossibly large circle-shaped room. The other side of the room is dark, and it's impossible to see. The only light source is two massive glowing white orbs easily 3 kilometers above me, creating a dim glow to light up a dome-shaped room. It would be easy to fit a small mountain inside here. The walls and ceiling are all made of the same glossy dark gray stone. When I look left and right, all I see is more archways, leading down more dark hallways just like the one I left. There are hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They go on further than my eyes can see all around. My eyes widen even more when I see dozens of black titans slowly walking into various dark walkways, all coming from the pitch-black center of the room. I try to wrap my mind around what I'm seeing here, but many things aren't making sense. If this place is what I think it is, then every one of these halls has its own rift at the end of it, and these titans are draining mana from dungeons systematically. Just as my gaze points back to the center of the room, wondering how they're possibly all walking in from the center, I freeze with awe and terror. The two white orbs of light kilometers above in the sky turn toward me, and stare straight through me even with my stealth skill fully activated. I feel an immense, mana-imbued pressure crushing me from above, and the outline of a jet-black humanoid monster too massive to fathom entirely fills my senses. I don't hear, see, or think about anything else as it stares through me. The mountain-sized creature has no defining features other than its glowing white eyes and the overwhelming aura that exudes the feeling of endless greed for energy. My body double is killed instantly by its presence alone. All the memories of this experience come surging back to my main body in the Great Plains fractions of a second after the rift closes. Chapter 422. So that's the Void Creeper Lord. I turn to Ember and he responds. Oh? You actually met it? Meeting it isn't exactly what I'd call that. More like it killed me the second I laid eyes on it. Ember nods. Sounds about right. If you were killed in an instant, you have nothing to worry about. He turns back to the direction where the rift closed moments ago and continues to speak through our link. It's already been too long back in that world for that creature to remember you even existed. I've never been myself, but I assume pests like us jump through the rifts all the time. I tell Ember the details about what happened, and we both have a good laugh but also appreciate the perspective of power it just showed me. Those greed-filled eyes and its overwhelming strength is burned into the back of my mind. Even kilometers away, all my senses were scrambled by its passive aura. The more I think about it, the more I understand there isn't even a point in being scared. The power gap is so large it's impossible to understand. In that world, it has absolute dominance. Even though it was only for a brief second, through the eyes of my double, I still have a perspective of what is possible. It's clear I only grazed the surface of its capabilities, but power like this is something I one day aspire to achieve. In this world, there are still many monsters and people far stronger than me. I have to master the power at my fingertips and continue to train by only facing opponents I am certain I can defeat. By taking it one strong enemy at a time with careful and calculated steps, I can rule like the lord of that world. Thinking back further, I recount the image of what my body double saw when it tried to sense me from afar when I re-entered the Great Plains. I really do seem like just a weak, unawakened human from the perspective of non-chi users now. With a thin smile, I whisper to myself, "Perfect." Then, I open up my item storage and let Ember hop inside. I have some work to do. The last 2 months inside the Titan's domain were even more productive and eye-opening than the first 3. I managed to almost double my chi capacity again, gaining an additional 120% by cutting my rest and relaxation time down, while upping the training output to not consider fatigue into account. In doing this, I managed to burn through an additional 1.6 billion MP in just 2 months. I upped the ante on using my buffs and elongated my time gathering chi by combining the 2 training methods together. Once I became able to conjure physical chi around my body at a constant rate for long periods of time, circulating it in waves around the outside of my body rather than inside added to my control considerably. This gave a large surface area for new chi in the room to gather upon me and also allowed me to multitask gathering, control training, and training my chi barrier. This narrative has been unlawfully taken from Royal Road. If you see it on Amazon, please report it. I used a full restore potion around the midway point when my mana fatigue became overwhelming, and it completely washed away 90% of the tiredness. With my growing control, I only needed about 5 hours of sleep every 7 days by the end of it all. That's a 260% increase in chi capacity and a 3 billion MP increase in total control since the start of this session. As I use Dungeon Walker to teleport myself back to the 28th floor of the labyrinth, there's a thick flowing white layer of chi present around every square centimeter of my body. I've gotten used to holding up the highest setting of a barrier, and with my immense control training, it's become an extension of myself. On command, I can let the chi that surrounds my body flow back into my core at any speed I'd like. It still feels as if there are ocean waves of energy crashing and flowing all around me, but my mind can guide the energy almost as easily as breathing now. It's a more instinctual way of controlling energy than the rigid activation of mana, but I've finally gotten the hang of it. I do a full scan of the dungeon using enemy detection and find there are only 2 monsters left in here, and they're very far away from the exit portal and boss room. I come to the conclusion that Bree has already finished up here and moved to the 29th floor. I dungeon walk to the mountainous region to check and see if my assumption is correct, and almost immediately see a white bird battling a shimmering orb of light high in the sky above the nearest mountain. Large waves of mana are expelled after every exchange. The white feathered bird dive bombs in, and Bree retaliates with her blades and attempts to confuse her opponent with light magic and her ranked up buff. About a minute goes by before the battle is over, and Bree successfully outmaneuvers the monster, letting its bloodied corpse fall to the ground and air steps downward to collect the loot. I inspect Bree to see she's already made it up to level 620 in such a short amount of time, but it's clear there was quite the struggle in that battle. As she stands next to the dissolving body and drinks an HP and MP potion to heal her wounds and mana depletion, I confirm she's nearing her max level possible with her current mana control. This dungeon on the 29th floor may be the last safe one for her to hunt in alone for the time being. I airstep over, covered in a thick barrier of chi, but hide behind rocks and trees. I get within 50 meters, but her head hasn't turned, and not a single sign of there being an enemy nearby is triggered. It hasn't been the full hour she requested, so I'll let her farm here longer. In the meantime, I might as well see what the floor above this one has to offer. I dungeon walk away, far deeper into this dungeon, and dip into the boss room portal to challenge the boss. An enormous level 667 bird with bright white feathers and fierce advanced wind magic appears and lets out a screech. Then, after a moment of silence as its battle cry echoes away, it blows mana-imbued wind magic all throughout the boss room. I slowly airstep into the sky to meet its eye level and pull my black sword from my item storage. The moment I lift it in the air, the dense chi swirling around my body flows into the blade, oversaturating it in an instant. The same thick barrier of chi around my body now surrounds my blade as well. To the boss monster's perspective, I have no magic power. It sees me as a bug, ready to be squashed with a single swing of its long, sharp talons. However, once it dives down to attack, I simply swing my blade upward and let the bird's own momentum cut itself in half against my chi-imbued sword. It wasn't even a challenge, and the boss was confident until its last breath it would be the victor. Now falling to the boss room floor are two halves of a mighty bird that has no idea how it died. Level up! Level up! I hit level 647, absorb its MCP, and collect the mana crystal and white feather of agility it drops with a 110% agility buff. I place them all in my item storage before the transport magic brings me to the 30th floor. Once the transport magic fades, I activate my enemy detection skill along with my all-seeing eye and airstep high into the sky to get a better view of this dungeon. The readings I get show monsters ranging anywhere from level 550 to 750. Monsters in a dungeon have never ranged this far apart in level on a single floor, and the variety of skills I pick up using my appraisal skill is also a confusing piece of data to receive. However, it's best to take opportunities when they're presented. I whisper under my breath while pinpointing which monster I'd like to challenge first. Now this is going to be interesting. Chapter 423. As far as I can see, the dungeon is split into 3 different parts. It's like a pie split into triangles, stretching out a few kilometers each. I seem to be hovering over the rocky region of the dungeon right now. There are massive rock formations, plains of rocky dirt and soil, and large forests with small mountains and hills. At first, my view was blocked by a large plateau-like structure, but now I can see the rest of the dungeon clearly. Nearby, I sense a huge lake filled with crystal clear, blue-tinted water for almost as far as the mountain region stretches. There are a few small islands in the lake, but it's almost entirely open water. Then lastly, the furthest away from here is a region filled with hot flames and volcanoes. It has the lake on one side of it and the rocky region on the other. Its black stone pathways are glowing orange and red-hot from the mana-imbued molten rock that trickles down from the massive volcano at the back of the region. The entire dungeon has a light breeze flowing through it and light white puffy clouds high above in the sky. To top it all off, there's a gray swirling boss room portal in the middle of all 3 sections. I can sense it slowly spinning where all of the regions meet in the middle, but am unable to see it with the naked eye just yet. This is the most fascinating dungeon I've ever seen. As these words barely leave my mouth, the closest monster to me that I pinpointed on my radar seconds ago comes within visual distance. A brown-colored creature screeches loudly as it flies up from one of the rock formations in the earth region of the dungeon below me. I do a quick appraisal of it while readying my chi-covered sword with one hand in a focused, nonchalant manner. It's level 579 and has 3 active skills along with a ranked-up buff. Active skills: Intimidation, Special Grade, Body Hardening, Legendary Grade, Combat Magic, Advanced Earth Summoning. Buffs: Brown Wyvern's Rock Prison. Stone begins to form around me in a dome shape as the brown wyvern stares me down with its sharp eyes. I don't bother moving and let the weak magic wall of curved stone completely envelop me. It locks into a sphere shape, and the walls start shrinking and closing in. The wyvern below me gets closer and closer as the sphere shrinks to the point where it begins to touch the layer of chi that surrounds my body. Without changing its upward trajectory in the slightest, the stone prison begins to crumble like sand the moment it hits my chi barrier, and its upward momentum meant to collide with me in a weakened state once the trap crushes its prey is actually met with a chi-imbued sword that slices it clean in half. It ends just like the boss room monster from the 29th floor. What's going on today? These monsters really like killing themselves, don't they? I smirk and continue to airstep forward deeper into the Rocky Mountain region, knowing I won't have to get serious fighting a single opponent on this floor. However, some are at a higher level than me, so there's good reason to travel in to level up and farm extra PP, and create dungeon walker points all over this place while I have the chance. As I make my way through the rock structures of the Earth region, more wyverns come diving in from above and below with a similar attack strategy. Every time, I let them dive at me and decimate them without using much energy at all. Though one thing stands out to me: the further in toward the center of the dungeon I travel, the higher level the monsters become. Once I kill my fifth one, I'm almost halfway through the region toward the center of the dungeon, and a familiar ringing sound can be heard in my head. Level up. I reach level 648 after defeating a level 655 wyvern. Upon closely examining my enemy detection skill with its level inspection perk, I conclude my theory is true. It seems the closer I get to the center of the dungeon, the higher the level of spawned-in monsters become. This means if I stay at this distance away from the boss room, I can farm mobs directly above my level and cash in on the maximum MCP and PP gains. Over the next half hour, I use air steps and dungeon walker to move back and forth throughout this portion of the Earth region using my inspect skill to only pick the right opponents, clearing out every wyvern within 5 levels above me as I raise my own. This narrative has been unlawfully taken from Royal Road. If you see it on Amazon, please report it. I sporadically check my dungeon walker skill to see Bree farming on the floor below me, but she hasn't yet hit her maximum level for that floor. I can tell she's still determined to keep going, so I decide to give her some extra time while I have some fun farming up here on the 30th floor myself. While doing so, I close the distance between myself and the Blue Lake region nearby too. There are some interesting readings coming from within I'd like to check out. One of which being a new skill I don't have yet. Level up, level up, level up, level up, +1 PP. Level up, level up, level up, +1 PP. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up, +490 agility, +39, 340050 MCP. I hit level 660 fairly quickly. By only absorbing PP and MCP, the leveling process moves up very fast. One of the kills even triggered the absorption perk that allows me to take a portion of my opponent's stat points. I would be sticking around to collect loot too, but they mostly only drop mana crystals. I've killed dozens, but nothing interesting drops until this most recent kill. As I'm air-stepping away toward the lake and the wyvern's corpse falls to the floor, an unusual pulse of energy comes from it. I stop my search for other wyverns and circle back to see what it has dropped. Resting on the rocky floor is a tan-colored stone with thousands of MP pouring out of it in the form of liquid mana-imbued rock that forms into small boulders. The floor beneath it is growing at a fairly quick rate, and I can tell the energy from within is being expelled. The grin filled with amusement covers my face as I make my descent downward to collect the item drop. An earth stone, huh? Looks like I have another rare resource-packed dungeon to farm. I open up my item storage and let the stone fall inside. In doing so, the ground growing with rock and rubble ceases to move. A mound of fresh earth is left in its place as I continue my hunt. My gaze turns to the other 2 regions in this dungeon, and my curiosity is spiked. If this region drops earthstones, there's a possibility the others drop different elements too. I speed up my steps and finally make it above the shimmering Blue Lake region where the artificial dungeon sun reflects off the lightly crashing waves below. Off in the distance, a bright blue wyvern comes my way and clocks in at level 661. I praise it too. Active skills. Intimidation. Special grade. Body hardening. Legendary grade. Combat magic. Advanced water summoning. Buffs. Blue Wyvern's Fury. My eyes widen at the sight of its skills. I'd already picked up on the fact that there were water wielders here when I first entered the dungeon but didn't recognize it at first glance. The only wyvern I faced in the arena back in Valor City looked exactly like this one, yet it had fire magic instead of water. I don't let the change in color throw me off too much, and let the creature with wide wings, sharp talons, and furious eyes come swooping in while summoning tens of blades of water all around me in a dome shape. They all come closing in as I take a deep breath to swing my sword with ease, negating every one of its blades in an agile spinning motion while air-stepping forward and piercing its dense mana shielding like butter. Use absorption. Skill. Combat magic. Advanced water summoning. Yes. No. I accept the skill as well as its MCP but turn my head to the side as another one bursts out of the water below me and tries to attack in the same fashion. Swinging my blade gracefully and aiming with great precision, I take out its level 657 partner in an instant too. More blue wyverns come rocketing out from the deep water below me, and I dance around the air easily dodging and slicing through each new one that gets in my way. Over half a dozen of them come out from the lake before one unique wyvern catches my eye as it flies at me from the direction I just came, seemingly spawned from the space in between the water and earth region. Its scales are bright blue just like all of the other monsters attacking me, but on its status, I see combat magic. Advanced earth summoning. As it screeches and begins to attack, stone spears are sent flying my way in the air, and a dome of rock surrounds me, but it's glowing blue just like the wyvern from the arena. A mutant. I chuckle as the monster gets closer, but in a matter of seconds, it's defeated and torn to pieces just like all of the previous attackers. The glowing blue earth it attacked me with falls down below into the lake. Every splashing sound it creates makes me more curious about this whole situation. The main question on my mind is wondering what kind of element stone a mutant like that would drop. I continue on, hovering over the lake, diving just a tiny bit deeper and closer to the center of the dungeon to face a few more monsters. Their levels rise, but their difficulty is all the same. They don't even make me break a sweat. Some dive bomb in from above, while others come soaring up from the bottom of the lake. Level up, level up, level up, +1 PP. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up, +48. 600. 770 MCP. By the time I've almost made a full circle around the dungeon, the edge of the volcanic region is in sight. I've sliced through a few dozen blue water-wielding wyverns hitting level 668, but haven't yet tried out the new skill I absorbed from the first. A crimson-colored wyvern comes my way and breathes out a dark red wave of flames. This may be a good place to test things out. I put my sword on my hip and release a small portion of the swirling chi barrier from my now freed-up right hand. Instead of suppressing all of my magic, I let one half of my mana control be used as I activate my new water summoning skill and place my hand in front of me, facing the red wyvern. This is similar to what I do under the bottoms of my feet, allowing the chi barrier to thin out so just enough air magic can come out to propel me higher and keep me in the sky. But, considering this is an attack on an enemy, I use a bit more power. My palm glows bright blue, and a pillar of water comes flowing from the center of my hand, expanding larger and larger until it makes contact with the ball of flames sent my way from the level 665 wyvern that attacked me from the volcanic region. In an instant, the creature's flame is engulfed by the stream of water, and once it makes contact with the wyvern itself, its body is disintegrated by the water pressure. The water jet continues forward, making contact with a small hill of molten rock 100 meters away. I stop releasing magic, but the attack that hits the structure punctures clean through, leaving a gaping circular hole in the rock formation. I deactivate my skill and let my chi barrier reform around my hand while I grab my sword and chuckle to myself. Noted. I guess half my mana control is probably still a bit too much. Chapter 424. Level up. Level up. Level up. Level up. Level up. Plus 1 PP. Level up. Level up. Level up. Plus 1 PP. Level up. 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 Plus 1 PP. Level up. Plus 102. 509. 223 MCP. Close to another hour passes as I continue to farm in the volcanic region, testing out my new water summoning skill and finding that if I use about a fifth of my mana control, they can put up a better fight. I reach level 684 before one of them finally drops an advanced firestone. It burns hot and gives off a dark aura. I place it in my item storage for later, as this is the strongest firestone I've ever seen. There are plenty of stronger wyverns deeper in, closer to the boss room portal, but I want to take my time farming here. Killing monsters just above my level gives me the optimal amount of MCP and PP gains per level up. On top of that, I'm looking to get the maximum number of kills in order to farm element stones too. The drop rate here seems to be less than 2%, but for such a valuable resource, it's actually pretty high. The main reason I've stopped now is because I'm well over the agreed-upon timeframe I said I'd meet back up with Bree, and she finally hit level 645 in an intense duel against one of the white-winged hawk creatures on the 29th floor. Unfortunately, I couldn't find another mutant wyvern despite camping by the borders of the regions. However, I'll be back here very soon. Dungeon Walker. I blip back to see Bree less than 100 meters away, and air step down to the ground nearby with my chi barrier fully activated. I wave at her as she collects the mana crystal from her last battle and looks at me with a confused and half-startled expression. I was wondering when you'd show up, and secretly hoping you'd let me keep at it until I hit the max level in this dungeon. Odd how things worked out. I take a few steps closer until we're less than 10 meters apart. Then she takes a step back and the confused expression on her face grows. You look a lot different, and your aura, it's gone. Bree tightens her gaze to look me up and down, unable to piece this puzzle together. I reply, it's a new ability, probably better if you don't ask. I'm unable to share this one. Her stare remains on me for a moment, and I decide to allow about 20% of my aura out, just like I did while facing the strongest red wyvern in the dungeon above us. Her expression shifts back to normal. She replies once my aura is able to be felt. Interesting. To my senses, it seemed like you weren't even here. It almost felt like my eyes were playing tricks on me. Interesting. I make a note to myself that I should probably always let a small portion of my mana leak out when interacting with people. A hunter with zero mana control at all would be even more suspicious than one with an overwhelmingly high amount. Bree reaches into her item box around her waist and walks closer with a smile, pulling out a small concealment case. Once she opens it up with a click, I can see what's inside. 2 of the highest quality wind stones I've ever seen. I'm looking forward to seeing what I can craft with these. Stolen content alert. This content belongs on Royal Road. Report any occurrences. She pauses for a moment. Hey, I know you said you have a meeting to get back to tonight, but do you think you have a little time to come back to my office? I have a few extremely high-grade items I've been waiting for the right time to craft. With the use of your skill and my recent strength improvement, I'm sure I can make something extremely unique. I nod and place a hand on her shoulder, dungeon walking us to one of the exit portals that leads into the underground dungeon hub. I activate my conceal skill to shift my face and let my cloak morph into a generic black business suit. While doing this, I also increase my chi barrier's density to let out an even smaller amount of mana, similar to that of a level 350 hunter that has barely scraped the surface of awakening mana control. We walk out into the underground black market. It doesn't take very long until we make it back to Bree's building and the same blonde-haired guard greets us and lets us in. On the first floor, all of the workers have left for the night, and the front doors are locked and fortified. On the second floor, the 2 twins have left for the night as well, but Bernard still sits at his desk in front of his library of books, deeply immersed in one as he sits with very good posture at his desk. He gives us a nod as we walk up the stairs into her office. I make a comment in a whispering tone, simultaneously putting up a hush barrier around us while we make it to the top floor. You know, your security here is rather lacking. I got past unnoticed the first time I showed up and even left a clue for your two men out front that I was here. I assume they never notified you. Bree shakes her head as I continue. The second time, all it took was a little sweet talking to the guard down below in the black market to let me through. Once we're partnered, I think some elite-level guards are in order. Or at least some higher-level mana shielding with an ID scanner as a security precaution. She nods while walking back over to her desk. You're right. Up until now, all threats and attempted break-ins I receive are from E and D-class hunters at most. There's no point in coming to the black market as a higher-grade hunter with access to the Dungeon Hub and Association-partnered shops. Even if someone of C-class or higher were to go rogue, the Association always takes them out before they're much of a problem. That is, unless they can escape to the Dark Continent. There are exceptions, of course. She gives me a sly smile, insinuating she means people like me. I sigh and respond. That makes sense, but I just wanted to put it out there. If any of our C and B-grade goods are being produced and shipped out here, security needs to be heightened. I trust you're strong enough to protect this business yourself, but there will always be times when you're away. Extra backup is needed. She nods while I activate my Rising Emperor's domain buff and give Bree the mythic grade crafting ability. Check your status, the skill should be there. I have a bit of time, so make whatever you'd like. Bree's eyes light up as her blue status screens begin to form all around her, and she digs into her desk, pulling out many items with varying abilities and buffs ranging from 50% up to 120% and odd-colored stones and potions I've never seen before in my life. I don't really care to watch, as I have quite a few other things on my mind. The first thing that still piques my curiosity is what kind of elemental stones the mutants on the 30th floor drop. However, the second most significant topic that has been on my mind for months of perceived time, ever since my second Chi training period in the Titan's domain, concerns what Fisher and Lydia will reveal about their findings in Sector 2. It's been a huge mystery looming over me ever since I entered Valor City, and I'll be having a final meeting with Lith tonight to secure the details of the trade routes and finally figure out what kind of territory I'll be venturing out to next. I sit with my feet up on a coffee table, and my hands behind my head, staring at the ceiling deep in thought as flashes of light continuously go off in the back portion of the room. Bree's voice rings out to me after about 20 minutes and a glowing silver ring comes flying my way. Hey, I made something for you. It's one of the highest quality items I think I've ever produced, so please accept it as a gift for helping me rank up today. I use appraisal while catching the shiny silver-colored ring in my hand, while not moving any other part of my body from the comfortable couch. Platinum ring of visual manipulation, plus 151% mental strength, plus 111% speed, plus 100% agility, plus 99% strength, plus 74% defense. Illusion attribute. My eyes stay focused on it for a moment, and the platinum glimmer and smooth surface of the item are captivating. A bright white aura comes off the ring, and Bree continues to speak. It has a light attribute imbued that should allow you to put up small walls of illusions similar to my own, meaning you'll be able to make people around you invisible if they're close enough, even if you don't share that stealth skill with them. I smile and accept it, taking off my platinum amulet of frost, plus 137% mental strength, plus 90% ice magic strength, to replace it with this new item with much better stats. I slip the smooth platinum ring on my finger. Thanks. I'll make good use of it. I place my hand above me in the air and let out a much higher amount of my mana control to let the illusion attribute of the ring activate. A long 1 meter by 2 meter rectangle of shimmering mana comes out, making the ceiling above me disappear, allowing me to put whatever I'd like in its place. Light flashes in the back of the room as Bree continues to craft random items, and I become very entertained by changing the rectangle of ceiling that I control to look like various dungeons I've been to before. Another 20 minutes or so go by before the sensation of someone approaching from below us hits both mine and Bree's mana senses. We stop what we're doing, and I release the hush barrier just in time for a few knocks to ring out from the side door at the top of the stairs. Bree looks to the back of the room, and I turn my head to face the visitor. It's Bernard. in a neatly fitted suit, thin framed glasses, and a book still in his hand at his side. The craftswoman's assistant speaks up in a professional tone. "I'm very sorry to bother you in the middle of a meeting, Ms. Brianna, but there's been important news from an informant that I think you'd be very interested to hear." He looks over to me, then back at Bree, waiting for her response. She nods. "Very well, this client is trusted. Don't worry about keeping secrets." "What is the news?" Bernard pauses for a moment, then blurts out something that leaves the whole room in shock. "Well, this is directly from our informant that infiltrated the association. There's been a violent high-grade dungeon break near the Green Ridge Mountain Lookout. It's unlike any break they've ever seen before. The energy dispersed has created 14 brand new dungeons in its place." Chapter 425. A few hours ago, at the top of the association's HQ tower in Vice City, a blonde-haired woman named Samantha picks up her transmission tablet while she looks out the glass window of the top floor of her office suite. She is the assistant to the Vice Region's director. The transmission tablet in her hand glows brightly for a few seconds before the deep voice of the director, Brutus C. Matthews, replies on the other end. "You know, I'm out on business in the Apex region right now. What might be so important that you'd call at a time like this, and on my emergency line?" The room is listening. The tall, blonde-haired assistant continues to stare out the window as an enormous mushroom cloud of white energy continues to expand at a distance of about 20 kilometers away from the city. "I believe the matter is urgent. I wouldn't have called otherwise. I'll have all available Vice Region elites sent out on the issue immediately, but I wanted you to be the first to know. It looks like we're having another surge, or something of similar magnitude." The director stays silent on the other end of the call as Samantha recounts the events of the distress signal from the Green Ridge Lookout dungeon, and now the fading white cloud of light that illuminated the entire sky for the city to see. After a long pause, the director's voice echoes back through the transmission tablet. "Very well. Secure the perimeter and I'll make my way out there as fast as I can. Thank you for the swift action and professional response." The transmission tablets go dark on both ends as Samantha watches the remnants of the blast fade away. Her tablet lights up again as she calls all units that are available in the city to make their way out to survey and secure the blast zone as the director ordered. Meanwhile, Brutus sits in a dark room with 9 other people at a large round table. The edges of the room fade off into shadows, and no one is able to see anyone's exact facial features. There are only outlined silhouettes. As he puts his small silver tablet back into a pocket, he speaks up, facing the man in the largest seat directly across from him at the table. "I'm sorry for the interruption, Mr. Freeman. Please, let us carry on with this year's B-class exam preparations. I'll attend to this matter once we've finished up here." The large shadowy figure at the back of the room nods slowly one time, then a bright golden light shines from one of the rings on his right hand. Simultaneously, the same golden-yellow glow shines brightly in the shape of a collar around the necks of 2 A-class hunters that sit next to his left and right sides. They both stand up and bow toward the center of the table as the shimmering golden light disappears from their necks. As they both bring their heads up, they move in opposite directions. One of them uses a telekinesis power to levitate the shadowy figure's chair just above the ground, turning it toward the back of the room filled with darkness as the other man speaks to the remaining people at the round table. "The Apex Region's director wishes for all of us to go back to our posts. Even if it is a false flag, it is best we all prepare for a surge in our home regions. We've covered most of the topics we wanted to tonight. Although our trade routes have been limited since the disappearance of a main distributor in the Dark Continent, we're making do with what we have stocked up on for now and what we can farm from the Apex dungeons. The B-class exams are still over a month away, so we shall meet again next week to continue this discussion. Directors, please leave your closing notes or concerns, then you are all dismissed." Once he finishes, the A-class hunter speaking for the Apex director places a small black box with a thin slit on its top in front of him on the table. He waits patiently for all members at the table to write a few notes on small pieces of paper folded in half to voice anonymous concerns about this week's meeting and ideas that they would like brought up in next week's meeting to be discussed. Once all papers are put in, The hunter picks up the box and follows into the darkness at the back of the room to assist Mr. Freeman. There are some rustles of papers and a few whispers between the remaining 7 directors including Brutus, but it's soon followed by bright glows of transport magic being activated, and various directors making their way back to their home regions as requested by their leader. Brutus takes out a transport crystal from a miniature item box in one of his other suit pockets and crushes it in his hand to teleport back into the Association Tower's only teleport platform deep underground. Stolen story. Please report. Welcome back, Mr. Director. Samantha notified me you would be stopping by. A tall, silver-haired artificer in a purple cloak, decked out in all kinds of magical gadgets and gear, greets Brutus with an open door and a wide smile as he walks through the long halls of the underground testing labs of the association. Nice to see you too, Leo. It's been a while, but I'm not in the best mood right now. That director's meeting didn't accomplish a single thing. Our unique trade items from the Dark Continent are still on standby, we're getting no extra support from the Apex region for labyrinth farming, and the B-class exams are coming up fast, so we're bound to lose even more elite manpower. Leo calmly walks the halls next to Brutus, allowing him to rant all he wants until the two of them get to the elevator that leads to the main lobby. The doors open with a ding, and Brutus walks inside with a long sigh, straightening his back and putting on a professional smile. Anyway, good seeing you, Leo, hoping next time on better terms. It's all part of the job. Order must be kept by any means necessary. Am I right? Of course you're right. The artificer lets out a chuckle and waves the director goodbye as he turns to quickly make his way back down the hall to continue a few late-night experiments. Brutus meets up with Samantha, who's patiently waiting with a silver information tablet in hand. They both walk out of the lobby into the dead of night very quickly to make their way to the forest. The distance is far, but the two of them make it deep into the forest fairly quickly, passing a few association workers illuminating the forest path with various skills on their way. What was previously a very dark dirt path is now covered in mana-imbued light sources, and the aura of dozens of late-night workers can be sensed out in the forest along with the sensation of many dungeon portals that were not previously in this location. Once the director makes his way into the clearing where the trees don't block any extra vision from the blast zone, the sight before his eyes is like no dungeon break he's ever seen before. You weren't messing around. Whatever caused this reaction packed some serious power, but I highly doubt it has anything to do with a surge. All of the dungeons in the main hub give off stable readings. This must be an outlier. Samantha nods and looks down at her information tablet as the deep crater of dirt and rock stretching out for kilometers on either side, and over 200 meters down in a light slant toward the center comes into view. Many blue swirling dungeon portals have spawned, littered all around the shallow hole where a mountain used to be, and small workstations of association hunters have been set up outside each one. Some tables have mana crystals and loot, while others are empty and the exploration parties are still inside. Samantha speaks up as they both begin walking down into the crater. We've found 14 of them total so far. They're all E and D class dungeons. Some are unique, so we'll have a few new item sources to farm here, while 6 so far are duplicates of dungeons we already have control over in the main hub. It will still take a few hours to get all of the approximate boss levels and loot drop percentages figured out, but it will most likely be all complete by morning. The director stares down at the dungeons and thinks to himself for a full minute while the two of them walk by the first spinning portal. Some of the guards and association workers recognize him as he walks by and give bows and salutes, but Brutus doesn't care to acknowledge them as he's deep in thought. Finally, he speaks up to Samantha. Are the guards that manned the Green Ridge lookout still alive? I'd like a word with them if they are. Also, all high-level hunters in the vicinity with earth elements awakened and craftsmen of any level, have them report here immediately. I have a plan to fix this mess by the morning. Of course. Samantha pulls out her transmission tablet and begins to make a few calls. A few flashes of light blip all over the forest as many hunters between level 100 and 550 come over the moment they're called. 2 of the hunters are the guards that were meant to be watching the Green Ridge lookout dungeon in question when the blast went off. Brutus has them explain the events that they can remember, but the fact that all they know is the portal turned red and they woke up unharmed almost 10 kilometers away doesn't sit well with him. Samantha uses her lie detector skill to confirm they are in fact telling the truth, so he decides to leave this mystery for a less urgent time. Fine, you two go back to the association. Samantha will arrange a luxury suite for each of you to take a rest. I suspect there is much more to this than meets the eye, and believe you're not at fault. Still, we will question you further at a later date. Your weekly pay will continue as usual as you rest and recover. They both graciously leave the crater, and Brutus turns to the others. All right, the rest of you, let's get to work on turning this into a new dungeon hub. Considering the strength of the dungeons I've spotted so far, it'll be a good place to train new recruits, and possibly an area where we can expand the city. He turns to the 3 earth magic users on standby, then points to all the dungeons with an open palm. Your team's job is to make even pathways connecting all the dungeons together, making nice arching entrance gates to each one. Then once you're finished there, make the dirt path back to the city presentable. He turns to the small team of craftsmen next. I need mana-imbued lights put up along the pathways for nighttime hunters, and basic D-grade mana shielding put up around every one of these newly spawned portals as a safety precaution. Brutus turns to Samantha. Make sure the signs are put up above each stone archway, put in place denoting the dungeon skill level. We'll double-check them ourselves before it's written in ink. Then, have 1 guard per gate assigned by morning at 1 letter grade above the gate's grade. Pay them standard weekly rates. She nods and writes down information on the tablet. Meanwhile, the crowd of craftsmen and earth magic users all get to work on their tasks. Brutus whispers under his breath while crossing his arms. Whatever happened here, it's going to end up being very profitable for the association, but I'd still like to get to the bottom of what exactly it was. This was not a natural phenomenon. Chapter 426. Back in Bree's office, the room stays still as we take in the news about dungeons being found in the forest region where the Green Ridge Lookout used to be. My eyes open wide, and so do Bree's. We turn to meet each other's gazes. I'm the first to whisper under my breath. No way. Silence looms in the room for another few seconds before Bree responds to her assistant. Thank you very much, Bernard. This is valuable info, and I appreciate the good job in closing up the shop today too. You're dismissed for the night. He bows and replies before walking down the stairs. Thank you, Ms. Brianna. Have a good night. I'll see you when we open tomorrow. As he leaves, I put up my hush barrier again, and Bree speaks in a curious tone. That cursed item you set off seems to do a bit more than just collapse dungeons and blow up mountains. She raises an eyebrow and continues. I'm sure the association is all over the blast site by now if our D-grade informant has already sent in the news. Elites must be on the scene. I'd love to check it out, but there's no way I'm getting by without being seen or sensed now. I think about what has happened in my mind's eye, picturing all of the concentrated energy from within the dungeon erupting from the Windstone just a few hours ago. Usually, when a dungeon collapses, it just disappears into thin air or slowly lets out its energy in the form of overleveled monsters. The uniqueness of this collapse was the fact that all the energy from within the dungeon left in an instant, and in a stable form. When it was inevitably released and dispersed in the blast, it must have naturally settled back together in dense points to form new dungeons. However, I've never heard of anyone forming a dungeon with just dense pockets of mana. If it was that easy, then I'm sure bigger organizations and countries would be making new dungeons left and right. There must be a unique factor about the way I collapsed this dungeon that created new ones. Deep in thought, unconsciously covering my temples with my index and middle fingers to think deeper into the issue, I finally perk back up and respond to Bree. You're right. You'll probably be spotted if you go and check things out. But I need to know what happened out there. Depending on what results I may find will conclude whether or not I decide to do this test again. A grin creeps across my face as Bree responds hastily. Not around here you won't. We were lucky that First Blast wasn't bigger or faster than it already was. Even by a magnitude of 2 times larger, and we could have been in serious trouble. That was a one-time thing. Don't go blowing up the city for your own amusement. Yeah, I know. If I ever do it again, I'll go out in the open desert of the Dark Continent or something similar. Don't worry. She lets out a sigh and sits back in her chair while I lay back down on the couch in the middle of the room. Then, speak up after about 2 seconds of silence. I am going to go check it out though. She responds while standing up from her desk. Oh, I know, just be careful out there. Promise me you won't get into any extra trouble before we even start our business together. I'm just taking a quick look. I'll be completely concealed. I won't let anyone even know I was there. I get up from the couch at this, and we walk down the stairs of her shop, and she unlocks and relocks the front doors as we walk out into the street and say our goodbyes. See you soon. The author's tale has been misappropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. See ya. We walk our separate ways as I activate my stealth skill underneath a veil of chi, making myself invisible to mana users even hundreds of levels above me. I airstep through the sky above the low-income area of the city and spread my enemy detection skill far and wide to find no one anywhere near elite level nearby. That is, until I finally make it to the edge of the forest. The once dark and unused dirt pathway through the thick trees is now covered in a smooth raised stone walkway that is connected to the main road on the outer edge of the city. Every 20 meters or so, a long pillar of stone holds a bright mana-imbued light orb on top of it, illuminating the walkways just enough to make it to the next one without falling into darkness. I soar high above the path, totally invisible to the eye or anyone's mana senses, and follow the winding pathway through the forest with a fast-beating heart and eyes full of curiosity. Once I'm about a kilometer in, the pathway ends abruptly, but I see a level 398 hunter with an advanced earth summoning combat magic skill sitting down on a nearby fallen tree, drinking an MP potion, and wiping sweat from his forehead. Nearby, there's a level 114 special grade craftsman combining mana crystals and large glass spheres he keeps taking out of an item box. I nod, spotting their association badges on their shirt collars and thinking to myself how interesting it is that they've managed to set all of this up so quickly. A dim light source glows out in the distance where I remember the blast going off hours ago, and I soar higher in the air off in that direction to soon find another team of earth magic and craftsmen forming the same style of trail coming to meet the team approaching. At the pace they're moving, it shouldn't take more than another hour or so to meet in the middle. I continue to fly further in until the trees thin out so much I can finally see the enormous crater in the ground where the mountain and Green Ridge lookout dungeon used to be. I come to a halt and drift downward to stand on the edge of the blast zone with my stealth skill activated and chi barrier on its highest possible density. The immense size of the hole in the ground is hard to fathom. It doesn't even look real. The landscape has changed so drastically. It seems as if there were never any trees or wildlife here in the first place. My widened eyes spot 14 mana-dense silver boxes covering the crater in random points, and stone walkways connecting each of them to the main path that's being connected to the city. The boxes are clearly mana-shielding barriers put up in case of more breaks, but they don't seem very intense. The dungeons themselves don't seem strong either. There's nothing here over a D-class dungeon at best. This confirms my theory before that all of the energy from the original high-grade C dungeon was dispersed and condensed, used to create these dungeons. Meaning, none of them have a chance of ever being as strong as the original. They're just the remnants from the blast. Considering this, relieved that I'm not missing out on any new high-grade dungeons, I begin to turn back. But then the door of one of the mana-shielding barriers around a dungeon in the center of the crater opens up. Out of the small stone archway, dimly lit by a pillar of light, a tall armored man and a thin blonde-haired woman with a clipboard walk out. With my heightened senses and increased perception of sight and sound, it's as clear as day who walks out from that portal. The Vice Region's director. The man that screwed my whole team over for a reason still completely unknown to me. It could have been for a quick buck or standard procedure for when teams come in contact with demonic energy, or just an order from the higher-ups. Whatever that reason may be, it doesn't make me hate him any less right now. I can hear his nonchalant voice speaking to his assistant from over a kilometer away with the use of my enemy detection skill and boosted perception. Another D-class dungeon tracked and surveyed. Wonderful. That just leaves 3 more to go. Where to next? His assistant points to another mana-shielded box and outlines the detailed information that the association workers gave while farming earlier. They just need to go inside to verify. Meanwhile, My vision tunnels in on the level 745 man walking slowly up a newly made stone pathway. I do a full scan of his status and inventory, seeing that he's gained 14 levels since the last time we met. Then, as my eyes look at the array of new protection gear maxing out all of his item slots with plus 150% and higher defense stats and magic resistance items, my gaze falls on a blank slot that shows an item reading that sends a shiver down my spine. Hey. Access denied. My gaze tightens, and I even shift my vision straight at the item itself that seems to be a ring. It glows gold, and wisps of energy trail from it as he walks away from my general direction at a slow pace. My mana senses pick up a reading so dense it's hard to calibrate how strong the ring is or what it does, and my chi senses pick up large amounts of energy trapped deep within it as well. It gives off an evil presence, like it has a wandering mind of its own. No chi seems to be present in the director's body at all, so my only guess is that it is a soul energy-imbued ring. This may be a very rare opportunity to get the director out in the open all alone. However, I promised Bree I wouldn't cause any trouble for her, and it's not in my best interest to challenge an unknown power like this without preparation. Despite being almost the same level as me, I've seen this director order around people like Bree's brother Rodrigo even though he's high above level 1000. If it has anything to do with that ring, I don't want to find out how it works the hard way. As much as I hate this man for selling out my team to a Dark Continent sector leader, attacking him blindly just because I feel like it is not a good idea. Reluctantly, I reach into my item storage to take out a transport crystal that leads back to the Galeheart Tower. With my eyes locked on the director and grip tightening around the fragile gem, I bite my bottom lip and make my final decision. Chapter 427. The transport crystal breaks in my clenched fist, and I'm teleported back into the main lobby of the Galeheart Tower. I can feel the dense layer of chi around my body get pulled through the instant transport rift with me, and I stand alone in the center of the white-walled room with both lobby men looking around with startled gazes. The teleport platform registered a user arrive, but no one is visible in the room. I deactivate my stealth skill and let my concealment items and skills deactivate too, revealing my regular form but keeping my chi barrier strong while walking forward toward the elevator. As I become visible, one of them speaks up. "You're just in time. Mr. Galeheart got back just half an hour ago. I'm sure he'll be ready to meet with you on the top floor." I nod with a smile as the elevator doors open and close, and I walk inside. While the extremely fast-moving room brings me to the top floor, I adjust my mana control to about 1/3 of its natural output. This is greater than it was the last time I met with Lith. Showing off a bit of growth is better than suppressing it much lower. As the doors of the elevator open with a ding to Litha's office, the walls are already showing off the holograms of the nighttime city lights, and there are 2 other people in the room aside from the mercenary guild leader sitting down. The people sitting in comfortable chairs, facing Lith, are 2 figures I'm very familiar with but haven't seen in a very long time. They turn their heads as I walk in the door. "Lydia, Fisher. Nice to see both of you still in one piece." I activate my inspect and appraisal skills to see them both at exactly level 602, but wearing the same gear as I remember them wearing before. The water-wielding swordsman and white-haired ice mage get up from their seats as I walk closer, and their eyes open wide. Fisher is the first to reply. "You look almost as old as me now. It's only been like 2 weeks. What happened to you? And where'd you get that fancy cloak?" He looks me up and down as the flowing magic manifested fabric of the cloak wavers in non-existent wind. Before I reply, Lydia is already eyeing me up and down too with her arms crossed. "Your mana control has risen quite a bit. You managed to find more mana-imbued essence stones? Or is this just from training in that arena Lith keeps talking about in the Silver District?" She turns to Fisher, then back to me with a light chuckle. "And yeah, I agree with Fisher, it looks like you've been training in the mountains for years or something. Whatever it is, it's working." She shrugs as I finally make my way over, seeing Lith watch our interaction with a thin smile from his desk. I reply to my old teammates, "If you encounter this narrative on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it." Yeah, training in the mountains alone basically nailed it. I roll my eyes and chuckle to brush her comment off as a joke, but in reality, I have been training in isolation for almost a year's worth of time over the last few days, and much has happened since the last time I saw these two. The last time we talked was before the Sector 2 leader was even killed. They look a bit different themselves, but unfortunately, I can't sense much change in their mana control. I reply, on a real note, I've gotten my hands on some interesting items and done my fair share of training recently. The arena and resources in this city have been very useful in gaining strength. I've been using a lot of unique methods to get stronger while you were gone. I'd like to share them with you when you have time to train. However, I think you have the more interesting story to tell today. What did you find in Sector 2? As I raise the question, both of their expressions shift to one of surprise, and Fisher is about to speak up. But Lith interjects before he can reply. How about we all sit down and wait for the remaining 3 members to arrive before we start our show and tell? My eyes turn to Lith, and I already have my inspect and appraisal skills instinctively activated. I'm hit with the usual access denied screens all over his status because of the use of some concealment enchantment, but for a moment I see the lettering flicker. It feels like if I were to use 100% of my control, I could easily break through it and see what Lith is hiding. Ding! My concentration is interrupted by the sound of the elevator, and I don't try to push my mana control any further than it is in fear of revealing my full power. So, I let it be and get seated on the opposite side of Lith's desk. Both Fisher and Lydia get comfortable on the other side again too, and the elevator door opens, and I sense 2 fairly strong mana controls enter the room with chi cores less than 1/5 the size of my own. It is a bit off-putting how well the dense shielding of these walls blocks the presence of others even just in another room, but also convenient so that I'm sure no one outside the tower can sense my own power inside. Abby and Maria come walking out from the elevator and make it halfway through the room before they stop dead in their tracks. Seeing the massive flowing waves of chi surrounding my body, I immediately open my telepathy link between all 3 of us and send a message. Don't say anything about it until we're alone. As you can see, I've had quite the breakthrough, but it's going to take some time for me to teach you how to do the same. They both keep their eyes locked on my aura for a few seconds while walking toward the desk at the back of the room, but understand and then turn their gazes to Lydia and Fisher. Maria hugs Lydia, and the 4 of them have a normal greeting and update as well. The duo that was sent out for Sector 2 reconnaissance can't help but comment on Abby and Maria's mana control increase just like mine. Fisher is the most interested. So it wasn't just Jay. That arena is really that efficient for training? Maybe I can give it a shot too. I leveled up quite a bit while away last week. I'd like to test out how far I can get. They continue to talk back and forth, but Fisher's comment that he's leveled up this week catches my attention. I saw on his status that he and Lydia were both over level 600, but didn't comment on it before. I join the conversation as Maria and Abby sit down on 2 other chairs, leaving only 1 seat open. You leveled up too? There are high-level dungeons out in Sector 2? Or a labyrinth? Or enemy hunters? How'd you manage to gain so many levels? Fisher turns to me from across the room with a grin. Oh, all of the above and much more. It's a chaos-filled gold mine out there. Especially with the leader gone, every day we stayed out there got worse. I don't know how anyone survives in a region like Sector 2. He turns to Lydia, and she gives a nod, confirming his points and opening her mouth to add to it. But another ding of the elevator draws all of our attention to the opening doors. I turn my head the quickest, as an energy I haven't felt in a while seeps into my senses. Ari, the team's archer put in charge of leveling up Chester to secure Sector 4 as a guaranteed trade route, walks out of the elevator into the office to greet us with a very serious expression on his face. His sharp eyes focus straight ahead, not looking at any of us in particular. His physique looks much more toned and buff than before, and the faint aura of refined demonic energy lingers all over him. Chapter 428. My gaze tightens as I conduct a full body scan with my all-seeing eye on the tan-skinned archer, who walks through the room and sits down in the last remaining empty seat in front of Litha's desk. I'm not sure what I was expecting to see, but I'm surprised to find no demon's core inside Ares' body. With the amount of used-up demonic energy lingering around in his aura, it seems as if he just finished up a battle with a demonic creature. Only one other possibility enters my mind as I open my telepathic link with him. Have you been training in the abyss? His gaze quickly turns to meet mine, and he replies through our link. I have, but it hasn't been easy. How'd you know? I nod and look back to Lith, but reply through our link. I can sense the remnants of defeated demonic creatures all over you. You can see them? Ari looks back toward Lith too, answering but making it seem as if we're not even talking. I can sense them, yes, and the more I fight them, I can see them more. However, I found normal mana attacks are very dangerous to use inside the abyss. I have to use my ranked up buff as well as the Red Hydra's power to take them out without harming myself. I think to myself for a moment as silence in the room continues to settle. I knew Ari's skill was always a bit unique. Spirit arrows aren't exactly a skill that I've ever seen in anyone else, and with his new ranked up buff to manipulate this energy allowing him to hunt demonic creatures, it must come with some odd special effects too. The last comment about the Red Hydra's soul energy aiding his fights makes the most sense. However, I still have a lot of questions I'd like to ask. Let's talk after this meeting. I'm sure we have some insight to share about the abyss. He gives a small nod. Of course, you're the only other person that's even acknowledged the monsters in there are real. We definitely have a lot to talk about. As his words echo in my mind, Lith talks out loud to all of us sitting in the chairs in front of his desk. Looks like the whole crew is finally all together in one place. Now, let's get down to business and finish up these final negotiations. We have a continent to conquer, don't we? His gaze turns to me and I reply, rehashing the same deals we spoke of in our last 2 negotiation conversations, moving back and forth on the numbers a few more times before we come to a final agreement. I restated out loud while standing up and putting out my right hand to shake his. So, before we discuss the actual details of Sector 2, let's get our numbers straight. We will keep 100% of the profits from all trade deals with the other sectors and regions from the mainland outside the walls. The only exception will be trades to Sector 1. You will only pay the price it costs my craftsmen to make it up to 100 platinum per month in product. After that, it's 50% off market price indefinitely as long as I still retain a 30% or greater profit margin on those goods. Lith nods and brings his hand closer, replying, yes, and in return, I am allowed to post as many guards as I wish around the Sector 2 territory, but none will be allowed within 500 meters of your main distribution center or base of operations wherever it may be. Along with this, you may hire your own craftsmen and do as you wish as long as I continue receiving the product I need to maintain my business here in Sector 1. My mercenaries need gear, and the shops and businesses I sell to need my product as well. I nod, bringing my hand closer to. Of course, in return, you'll be the third-party broker for the Sector 3, Vice Region, and Apex Region deals the first month of business, as they are more familiar with you as a business associate. But after this, you will introduce me to the main contacts under an alias so I can maintain trade with them long-term. This tale has been unlawfully obtained from Royal Road. If you discover it on Amazon, kindly report it. Our hands are so close to shaking I can feel the heat coming off his palm as he replies. Yes, all this, and I grant you access to all my amenities here in the Galeheart Mercenary Guild, and you will kill the Dark One. There is no time limit, but of course, sooner than later. You know as well as I do after facing those arena monsters, this is an urgent matter. I grip his hand as we both stand over the desk and smile at each other, knowing we're both about to profit heavily from this arrangement. I reply, you have my word. Give me the means to get strong and rich enough, and I'll personally deliver the Dark One's head on your desk at my earliest convenience. We both let out a laugh and give a firm handshake before sitting back in our chairs facing each other to discuss the fine details of the arrangement. Maria and Abby are happy to continue training in the arena, stacking money and training their new abilities for the time being. They don't explicitly say what abilities they're training because of all the people in the room, but it's clear to me they want to refine their chi control to the point where they can beat the 7th stage without the help of the Red Hydra's buff. I agree that this is a good idea for them for the time being, but I won't be joining. As much as I'd like to test my own power in the arena again, I'm certain it's a bad idea. I know I could beat a ghoul now with my chi control alone, and most likely face off against a wraith in the 8th stage too without much issue, but I haven't even begun to awaken my own soul energy, so there's no way I can stack up against the true enemy in this city. Showing off my new power is just asking for trouble, so I speak up in the middle of our discussion, turning to Fisher and Lydia. I'd rather venture out and see Sector 2 for myself. What's it really like out there? Fisher replies with arms crossed and a confident smirk. Oh yeah? You want to be on the front line of the cleanup patrol out there with us too? It's really a chaos-filled wasteland. I already told you. I chuckle. Yeah, I'd like to know. What did you two see? Lydia pulls out a few sheets of paper from her item box and spreads them out on Litha's desk while Fisher begins to explain. Well, if you see here in the outer regions of Sector 2, the portion at least that borders Sector 1, it's mostly a wide-open desert. Abby pokes her head into the conversation too. So, similar to the landscape we explored initially in Sector 4? Fisher nods. Kind of. When Lydia and I first made our way out to survey the land, everything seems pretty tame. Every 20 to 50 kilometers or so, there was another small village or settlement connected by stone or dirt roads for trade. Lydia interjects. However, after about 2 days of travel into the sector, some of the settlements ended up being abandoned or burned to ash. More crime and looting became rampant the closer to the center of the sector we came. It was so odd. Fisher nods and picks up from there. After 4 days in, not a single town wasn't covered in graffiti or burned to the ground. Only the larger settlements we found even had people left in them. Even those were lawless. Plenty of merchants and normal villagers were fleeing to try to get to Sector 1 or move towards Sector 4 in a hurry. I raise an eyebrow at this. So it's all pretty recent? People are moving because of something? Lydia replies. I think it's just the lack of authority in the main Sector 2 capital. Fisher nods slowly and explains. Yeah, when we got to the capital, it was already overrun with thugs, crime, and monsters. Plus, everyone is on edge with the Abyss approaching too. Aries' eyes perk up at the mention of the Abyss, but Maria butts in with excitement for the first time in this conversation at the mention of something earlier in Fisher's statement. Monsters? In the city? Outside of dungeons? Fisher proudly replies. That's right. The capital is right next to a canyon in the desert that goes deeper than even my own vision could see. Lydia and I tried to explore it a bit, but turned back before we got lost. It's truly massive. There are hundreds of dungeons inside it, but some of them have recently had breaks. So monsters flooded out from the canyon and took over parts of the city. Lydia adds to Fisher's point. It's dangerous for low levels to roam the streets alone. The only reason people stay in the city is because of the abandoned warehouses. The Sector 2 leader has many materials and experimental magic items locked away in various underground and above-ground secret locations all over the capital. Rogue hunters anywhere from level 50 to level 500 have made their own gangs and search parties all over the city to try and strike gold. There are human wars and monster wars happening every day in that hellhole. Fisher points out the portion of the papers where maps of the capital city are drawn. This is the best we could do, but the location of monster attacks, gang raids, and newly discovered warehouses are changing every day. The longer we spent there, the worse it got. He lets out a sigh, then sits back into his chair and crosses his arms. Lydia takes a similar stance. We're all strong, we can handle cleaning that place up if you really think it's worth it. But it's not going to be easy. After this, everyone sits and thinks about their words for a full 30 seconds before I speak up to reply. I don't want to spend another second in Valor City, and the sound of hundreds of new dungeons to be explored definitely piques my interest. I scratch my chin, but follow up my statement pretty quickly. I'll check it out and help with the cleanup. Sounds like a good opportunity to me. I'm in. Lydia smiles. Great. Fisher grins. Looks like you'll be getting down and dirty with us after all, Jay. I can't wait to see what kind of fighting style you've grown into. Then, out of the blue, Ari speaks up for the first time this whole meeting. If the Abyss is close by, I'll join too. Chapter 429. The conversation winds down and basically settles on the fact that we have to go out to the Sector 2 region to make any more progress. Abby and Maria are tired out from their training in the arena, so they head back down to the isolation pods to rest until morning. As they leave, I send a telepathy message to both of them, asking to get Monk to offer more chi pills for all of us to train with. But the condition being I won't be coming back to meet with him in the monastery. If they want to learn my quick chi capacity advancement method, they'll either have to come back to the Galeheart Tower where our powers are concealed or somewhere very far away from the city. I have an idea that I believe will simulate the environment of the Titan's domain, boosting the cultivation time of my teammates, but it still needs some testing. The isolation pods in this building are a key component of my plan. Abby and Maria leave through the elevator doors, and both Fisher and Lydia are the next two to stand from their seats. Fisher is the one that talks first. Well, we've given you the map and all the information we can on Sector 2 so far. We'd be happy to tag along. But after 2 weeks of exploration, even a full day's worth of time in those isolation pods isn't enough of a rest. He turns to me, then to Lith, then back to Lydia. How about giving us a day off? I just want to enjoy the city for a little bit. We've been hiding around in dark warehouses and dirty dungeons for as long as I can remember. Plus, it should take almost a week for us to get back out there anyway. We need to stock up on food and gear in the morning, right? What's the harm in waiting a day? I shrug, and Lith gives a similar reaction. I give the response. Fine by me. However, I think I can get out there a bit faster if I go alone. Take tomorrow off and enjoy the luxuries of this city. You earned it. Thank you for the valuable information. Lydia points down at one of the maps showing the border between Sector 1 and 2. Suit yourself. If you find a faster travel path, that would make our life a whole lot easier. Though, if you just want to use the route we took, just trek straight this way, you can't miss it. But it's not like there are any teleport points out there, so travel time can only be shortened so much when moving in a straight line. I nod as the two of them start to turn to leave. I know. I just may be able to find a faster way, you never know. After Lydia and Fisher both leave the room, only Lith and Ari are left here. The archer speaks up. I'll go with you. Our telepathic link is still open, so Ari comments again right after without Lith listening. I assume you'll be using your teleportation skill, once you find a dungeon out there, to make an easy access point. I nod and reply through the link. Yes, I believe it would be faster for you to stay behind as well. From the distances shown on these maps, I can make it to this place at full speed in just a few hours. I can come back and bring you after I make a teleport point. I think to myself, picturing Ember's top flying speed if we just soar high above the sky. Then reply out loud. You look exhausted from training. Maybe a break would be better for you too. Have you tried the isolation pods yet? If Abby and Maria still haven't gone in, I'm sure they could show you how they work. He nods, replying to me with telepathy. Got it. Then again a real answer out loud while stretching his arms in his seat. Maybe you're right. One of the guards did show me how the pods work when I first arrived, but I never tried them out. A good rest could do me well. He lets out a sigh and gets up to leave the room. I'll take a 6-hour break in the pods, so nearly a day and a half inside. If there are no updates by then, I'll join Fisher and Lydia for time off. But if you make any progress, I want to be the first one on the scene. As the elevator door opens for him, he replies with telepathy through our open link. I want you to teach me about this demonic energy. I need to get further into the abyss. Before I have a moment to even ask him why he wants to go into the abyss so badly, the dense mana-shielded doors of the elevator shut and our link is severed. I turn back to Lith, as we're the only two people left in the penthouse office room, as finally get to the questions that have been eating away at me. So, now that we're partners, I have a few questions I'd like to ask. If you stumble upon this narrative on Amazon, it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. I stand up from my seat and he does the same. We walk over to the holographic depiction of city lights and towers below us. He replies, I could tell you had a few things on your mind. After I watched that fight you had in the 8th stage of the arena, I knew things were starting to get serious. I nod once and reply, yes, I did talk with the corrupted royal guards, and they even told me the Dark One is watching. Litha's eyes widen, but I continue quickly to calm his nerves. They said it just views me as entertainment and not a threat, but that's enough of a hint for me to know it's time for me to leave the city until I'm strong enough. Good decision. So, if that's the case, then what are your real questions? I pause, looking over at him and seeing the access denied symbol on his status over his skills and items waver and flicker again. I up my mana control just another 10% out of curiosity, and the symbol finally breaks completely, revealing a small portion of his status for just a fraction of a second. Under the Active Skills section, access denied changes to Combat Magic, Extreme Wind Summoning, then immediately turns back to access denied once I let up on my high perception skill use. I get a peek at some of his gear like rings and amulets too, but they seem to be pretty standard 130 to 200% buff items for a hunter of his caliber. Lith is over level 800 and the leader of the strongest trade and mercenary guild in Sector 1. Then, raised the question, where did you get this status blocking gear? I didn't find it too weird that you, the Royal Guards, and even the old Sector 2 leader had it on. But I recently spotted an association director with the same symbol. I assume your gear was made by the Sector 2 leader just like the special armor for the Royal Guards, but I'm more curious about a single item that I saw on a director's hand. It was a gold ring. Litha's head turns to me quickly, and he immediately replies, "The gold ring? You didn't encounter Mr. Freeman, did you?" He takes a step back from me, looking me up and down and squinting at every one of my magic items. His vision moves to my neck, and his gaze tightens again. Without any extra words, Lith takes another step back and asks the same question. "Well, did you encounter that man? How do you know about the gold ring?" I stare back with a confused look and shrug. "Mr. Who? Freeman? I don't know who this is. If you wanted to know who I saw it on, it was the Vice-Region's director, Mr. Matthews. Or, better known as Brutus, that backstabber." Lith lets out a sigh of relief and takes a step closer to me, putting his hands back down at his waist. "Oh, Brutus." He thinks to himself for a moment. "That's interesting. I guess the Vice-Regent has been growing quite a bit lately. They trust him with a ring. Who would have thought?" He chuckles to himself, but I interject. "Well, what is it? Was it made by the Sector 2 leader? What does that thing do?" It gave off readings more powerful and ominous than anything I've ever felt before. Lith nods. "Yeah, no wonder you were spooked. I've seen items like that in some trade meetings and auctions. It's definitely the work of the old Sector 2 craftsmen. But it's bonded with an energy that I'm still not quite sure how it works or where to find it. Similar to the soul stones you and your team managed to absorb, those rings give off power that makes pure mana attacks useless against it. I've seen countless A-class hunters in the association fall in line without a second thought when faced against the gold ring you speak of. If you just ran on instinct, I'd say don't look back." I think to myself about what Lith just said, but it doesn't confirm anything I couldn't have guessed on my own. Just looking at the ring on the director's finger, I already knew it was bonded with soul energy, but the way Lith is speaking, it seems like he's in the dark about the intricacies of chi. For the split second I broke through his concealment defenses, I did see an element skill at a rank higher than my own, and a very high mana control, but there was zero presence of any other energy in his body. I let out a sigh and decide to move the questioning to a different topic, as I don't believe he'll have any useful insight on how to beat this power if he doesn't know how soul energy even works in the first place. "Okay, anyway, the next thing I wanted to know is how you managed to get teleport platforms and crystals to go with them in the Galeheart Tower? Did you get luminite from an auction and craft it yourself? Or do you have a special supplier? I'd like to purchase some myself if you have a link." Lith clasps his hands and cracks a grin. "A lot of hard-hitting questions today. Huh? I wonder how you even heard of that element in the first place." He lets out a sigh and continues as his smile leaves his face and he becomes more serious. "All of the teleport platforms in this building and in every city of the Dark Continent, as a matter of fact, were all installed by the Association quite a while ago. We have to purchase new teleport crystals to go with them whenever we run out. They aren't very pricey compared to the convenience they bring. If you set up a base of operations in the Dark Continent, I'm sure the Association would gladly install some for you too. However, that does mean they have access to your platform if they wish." He turns to look me in the eyes. He pauses. "You know my pockets aren't shallow. My guess is the association plants small amounts in auctions every once in a while to see who's interested, then outbids them. They would never actually let the public get their hands on it. I exhale, thinking deeply to myself before finally responding. But what about farming it from dungeons? Lith laughs out loud. That old myth? People have theorized that every once in a while, after a dungeon break, trace amounts of the transport magic is left behind in solid form, yes. He shrugs and continues to talk. I for one won't believe it till I see it. I've been around plenty of dungeon collapses and never once saw this so-called luminite. I think it's just a story the association spread around to keep people looking in the wrong place. You're better off trying to outbid the government in an auction. Seriously. I look out at the night sky, wondering if Bree really was fed misinformation about this point, but the next words out of Litha's mouth make me believe she was on the right path all along. The same drunken A-class hunter that told me this rumor also told me at the core of every luminite crystal there is the potential to form an entirely new dungeon. You just need enough mana and enough explosive force to be the catalyst. If this was true, I'm sure the association would be making new dungeons every day. He sighs. Then again, who knows what they do up in the Apex region? We stand in silence for quite a while after this point. None of my questions were really answered directly, but a few things are starting to make a lot more sense to me. I finally nod and turn away from the window, asking the final question that's been on my mind all this time. This may not have sounded very productive to you, but I assure you, it helped a lot. I'm going to head off to Sector 2 tonight, but before I go, could I borrow an isolation pod? I'd like to take one apart and see how they're made. Maybe the time dilation could be tweaked if a larger amount of mana was used as an energy source. What do you think? Chapter 430. Lith walks over to the elevator with me and agrees to grant my request. Sure, I don't see why not. This is another item specially crafted by the old Sector 2 leader, so there's a good chance it will be impossible to replicate. You can try to dissect the isolation pods all you want. At least they'll go to some use instead of rotting away in the storage room. The elevator moves down quickly to a very low floor and opens with a ding as we walk out into a room filled with crates overflowing with magic items and sheets of unused mana shielding up against the walls. Lith speaks up while rummaging through a few crates, pointing to the back wall at two large silver cylinders. There are two deactivated isolation pods. They were the first models I purchased quite a while ago. However, they started running low on power after about 4 years of consecutive usage. The time dilation is hardly noticeable anymore. Feel free to take both of them apart and do whatever you please with them. I don't need them back. I walk over out of curiosity and activate my all-seeing eye and appraisal skill to fully scan the machines. The only thing I get back is tons of thick metal, mana shielding, and a dense crystal of energy at the top of the cylinder. It's concealed and kept in place very efficiently, so it's hard to tell how much MP exactly is inside. All I can tell is it's a lot, and it would probably not be the best idea to go tinkering with high-density mana stones in confined spaces like this. So, I spread out my cloak and open up my item storage and place the two large metal cylinders inside to make it seem like a storage item. I'm sure Lith is already well aware that I'm a multi-skill user, but it feels right not to openly show every one of my tricks. While turning back to Lith, I see him holding up 2 handfuls of gems from another one of the now open crates. One hand is full of white crystals that shimmer with a rainbow shine, and the other hand is full of dark blue crystals that I can see through just a little, but haven't ever seen anything like them before. They don't give off any mana readings, but I can tell they're definitely high-grade magical items. Lith speaks up as he sees my confusion, handing the crystals over to me. Here, if you're heading out now, I want you to have a few extra transport crystals back to the Galeheart Tower in case of emergency. I gladly take the white gems and place them into my black cloak with my item storage underneath in a similar fashion that I did the isolation pods, but my gaze lingers on the blue crystals. And these? What are these? Lith hands them over and replies. They're recording crystals, a simplified version of what the surveillance system in the city uses. The tail has been illicitly lifted. Should you spot it on Amazon, report the violation. As I accept them, placing all but one into my item storage, Lith speaks again. Channel a small amount of mana into it, Then point the crystals at any target you'd like to record. I squint at the dark blue glossy stone and channel MP into it like Lith said to. It glows lighter blue and an invisible array of mana surrounds the room. Lith speaks again. Now that it's activated, continue channeling a steady source of mana into it, and it will continue to record the scene that it's pointed at. The more mana you imbue, the further the range and quality of recording. Lith walks in front of the crystal and continues to speak, waving his arms directly in front of the invisible array of mana that comes out from the crystal. You may be able to perceive the recording zone much more efficiently now that you're the one casting the magic, but I assure you, anyone else being recorded will not notice anything unless their perception senses are abnormally high. I nod, stopping the flow of extra mana into the gem, and the array of invisible energy ceases to come out. I toss the now dimly glowing blue gem up and down in my hand, then point it at one of the blank walls as it feels natural to do this. A projection of light comes out of the gem in a crystal clear image and shows a copy of Lith waving his arms up and down. I can even hear him explaining how the crystal works just as he was moments ago. Once the recording stops, Lith makes a comment on it. If you drain the MP from the gem, the recording will disappear forever, but if left untouched, the recording can be played back many times over. I haven't found a limit, but I'm sure over a long period of time the mana will naturally leak out and it will go bad. Interesting. I continue throwing the gem up and down in my hand, then eventually put it into my item storage as Lith speaks again. They may come in handy if you'd like to give instructions once and have them played on repeat, or take moving pictures of certain parts of the abandoned Sector 2 region to mark for later. You never know what you may need out there. I've used many of these for training the Royal Guards and easy presentations for trade deals. I nod and smile, placing my hand out for a shake. You're right, this is quite the useful gift. I appreciate it, thanks. No problem. We shake hands again, and board the elevator while Lith confirms that he will get all of the new trade deals and meetings situated and have exact item order amounts along with dungeon types and crafting recipes by next week to fulfill these orders. Very well, I think we're set. I'm off to do my own personal survey of the Sector 2 land. I use the other set of teleport crystals in the transport room to leave the Galeheart Tower, getting far away from Valor City, and into the train station platform in the Trade City below the mountain. Activating my stealth skill, I deactivate my chi barrier as there's no need for it if I'm already invisible. I walk in the middle of town in the dead of night and airstep high into the sky unnoticed until the small lights of civilization below me almost disappear from my senses. I recall Lydia's directions, looking down at a rough copy of extra notes she made for me. She said it's a straight shot in one direction if I traveled by land and would take almost a week to get out there, but I'm gonna fly. I take about 30 minutes to airstep upward and get so far away from the city that it would be impossible to see me. Then open up my item storage to let Ember out into the dead of night. For extra protection, I activate my Rising Emperor's Domain perk and give him my stealth skill the moment he enters the real world. With both of us invisible to the eye or any radar skills up to an absurdly high mana control, I feel very confident that we won't be seen. I update Ember on the news, showing him a copy of the map and approximate distance to our destination as he flaps his glossy black wings to find a natural air currents to increase our speed without exerting extra force. We set off toward the border between Sector 1 and Sector 2 at high speeds. Chapter 431. The wind speeding by my sides is powerful as we fly above the clouds. Ember slowly flaps his wings, and we get faster and faster with every strong gust, soaring higher into the air and further into the dark continent. Every few minutes, clusters of tiny lights fly by below us, and I try to picture what kind of city we're passing by. From Fisher's descriptions, I'm picturing small towns and villages, but as we get further in, the lit-up cities get much larger. After just under an hour passes, a straight line of bright lights catches my attention, and I take a closer look, boosting my perception skills and staring down into the darkness of night to make out what seems to be a massive wall separating the mountainous, rocky, and grasslands region of Sector 1, and on the other side, an arid wasteland of long-stretching desert leading to Sector 2. The wall looks just like the one my team climbed over to get into the Dark Continent, and with one long-range scan with my all-seeing eye, I can tell it's imbued with mana to keep people separated. There must be gates or some regulation to allow travel between sectors, but it seems like limiting crossing is a big thing in this specific section of land. However, at this height, no one's stopping us. After crossing the border here, we'll be changing our flight path from east to more southbound, back in the general direction of Sector 4. However, the abyss is the only thing separating the bottom half of Sector 2 and the top half of Sector 4, as the massive cloud of darkness sits and grows in the middle of the dark continent. Once we cross over into Sector 2 territory, the smell of burning wood and other building materials begins to fill the air, filling pockets of the sky with smoke and smog. Ember flaps his wings, changing directions and soars even higher, dodging the pockets of pollution that float up in the air. But the farther in we travel, the harder it gets to avoid them. More towns below are destroyed, left in cinders and letting plumes of smoke into the sky, while others are still half occupied with lights shining through the smog. The large clusters of light get closer and closer together the further into the sector we travel, and eventually, the hint of a rising sun peaks over the horizon. At the same time, the far tips of my all-seeing eyes senses pick up on an absurdly high mana reading. Or, to be more precise, over 100 of them. I've fallen into a calm state, resting on the warm, glossy scales of Ember's back as he glides through the sky, but as I perk up, his voice jolts me back to reality. "You can sense those too, Master?" I reply, nodding to myself as hundreds of dungeon portals show up in my mind's eye far down below us. "Yeah, I can sense them all right. It looks like we're here. This is the canyon Fisher was talking about. Dive down lower, but keep your stealth skill activated. We're a good distance from the canyon, but I still sense some life right below us too." We dip down through the cloud line, and the orange morning sun illuminates a wide landscape view of desert. If you spot this narrative on Amazon, know that it has been stolen. Report the violation. It looks like we're right back in the Sector 4 territory with rolling hills of sand and small mountainous rock formations with no wildlife in sight for kilometers all around. Far in front of me, there are 3 prominent details that stick out to me: a settlement, a canyon, and an abyss. The first is the black plumes of smoke coming from what looks to be a large developed area of what used to be a city. Tall buildings tower above the desert, but none of them compare to Valor City at all. At most, the tallest tower I see is 10 stories in height. From so high up in the sky, it's hard to see exactly what's going on. But there seems to be a 2-kilometer wide section of village with a few high towers, densely packed lower-class housing, and the remnants of merchants' shops and restaurants. Surrounding this central village about 5 kilometers outward connected by dirt roads, there are smaller individual houses and even little neighborhoods, but each of them is connected to large rectangular warehouses scattered all over the desert. Some are blackened and burned to the ground, while others are still silver and look as good as new, but their doors are broken into and rated with minimal exterior damage. I do a general-wide enemy detection scan and sense about 400 people scattered around the town below. None of them instantly stand out as a threat capable of seeing through my cloaking defenses, so I don't bother mentioning it to Ember. I look up from the town and turn my gaze to the canyon visible past the city. This is what caught my senses previously, so this is what I'd like to look through first. I point to the massive hole in the desert that's barely visible to the naked eye and speak to Ember through our link. The town can wait. Our first order of business here is to mark teleport points for my Dungeon Walker perk, and also, my gaze tracks back up to the canyon, then further into the distance to look at the thick dark cloud of dense demonic energy sitting stagnant in the desert. I want to do a quick survey of the abyss. I haven't been around energy like this in a while. Of course, Ember soars over the destitute remains of what I can only assume was the production town run by the previous Sector 2 leader. It looks like it was built around farming the dungeons in this canyon and transporting the materials to the small villages to mass-produce items at scale. Multiple roads branch out from the city through the desert and win their way to the canyon, but once I do a full enemy detection scan to see if there is anyone nearby, the sensation of dozens of level 100 to 130 readings hit my senses. I would assume it to be just rogue hunters out here trying to farm the open dungeons, but the fact that they all have body hardening skills makes me think otherwise. As my enemy detection perk shows visuals of my enemies and Ember descends down to the edge of the canyon, I see a horde of mutant Cyclops monsters violently fighting each other and trying to make their way out of the depths of the large desert ravine. Nearby, a D-grade dungeon portal glows red and lets out more and more of these mobs. As we get even closer, I register a few more similar bizarre lower-grade dungeon break events even deeper in other parts of the 20 kilometers wide canyon that seems to dip down so low I can't visually see to the bottom. There are rocky winding paths and multiple levels and ledges that make for a very interesting array of cliffs, valleys, and even small amounts of plants and flowing water down in the lower regions, but the darkness and shadows hide most of these parts to the naked eye. However, my all-seeing eye and enemy detection skills are able to do a full scan. Looks like 6 breaks, 143 stable dungeons, and 2 oddballs. I can't tell if those last 2 are just really strong dungeons or labyrinths. I'll have to go down and check them all out for myself. Ember and I come to a stop at the edge of the canyon, looking down into the darkness to see a few blue glowing portals light up portions with mana as the morning sun finally fully breaks over the horizon. The hot desert sun hits my skin while I activate my item storage and let Ember hop back inside. Summon me back if there's an interesting battle to be fought. You don't need me for dungeon exploration and skill farming. I nod and comment back before he disappears into the white spatial magic. You're right. Over 100 new dungeons to explore. They may not all give off strong readings, but there must be some unique items and skills I haven't found yet in here. I'm about to have some fun. Chapter 432. Body Double. I create 2 clones and have them appear on both sides of me. Then, speak up as we all look over the edge of the canyon. All right, I want approximate levels, loot type, and monster names etched in stone using an earth magic skill marked next to every single one of these dungeons. I look at the clone to my left, reaching into my item storage and pulling out a teleport crystal. Once the sun comes fully up, I want you to use one of these and go bring Ari out here. He's clearly very focused on learning about demonic energy and making it into the abyss, so I might as well teach him a few things and figure out what he knows that makes him want to go in there so badly. My double nods and catches the crystal as I turn to the other. You stay in stealth while marking the dungeons. I don't mind if wandering hunters see our labeling, but I don't want to be seen dipping in and out of every single dungeon. Your main job is to absorb every unique skill in monsters you find in these dungeons. Just like when I killed the Sector 2 leader, the craftsmanship skill transferred to my main body, so farm every last one of them. Of course. Also, don't clear those 6 breaks. Loot any unique mutant monsters, and keep any hordes from leaving the canyon, but don't beat their boss rooms. I want to see what happens if they're left unattended for long periods of time. I turn around as the faint sound of a small explosion hits my enhanced hearing to see plumes of black smoke rising from a warehouse that was previously unvandalized. I cross my arms and look back to my doubles, deactivating my stealth skill, but putting my chi barrier all the way up to maximum and using my cloak to turn my appearance into that of a low-level hunter carrying a steel sword on my back and leather armor on my chest and legs. In the meantime, I'm going to check out the city undercover. Whatever is in those warehouses sure is making quite the commotion. It shouldn't take more than a few hours for me to figure out exactly what's going on. At this, my 2 doubles jump down into the darkness of the canyon and I turn to start walking down a dirt path back to the settlements. It only takes a few minutes before I make my way closer to one of the newer warehouses being raided. I keep my distance but use a light inspect and appraisal scan to see hunters level 20 to 150 all rummaging through crates of E and D class gear stacked to the roof in these warehouses. They all wear small green pieces of fabric hanging from their belt with an emblem that looks like a diamond on it, but the hunters themselves look very different from each other. Some wear hunting gear, while others wear more casual apparel. Some even look as if they're fresh out of a business meeting in suits and ties. The tale has been taken without authorization. If you see it on Amazon, report the incident. The odd crowd and even more peculiar systematic pattern of rummaging and passing items down in a line to load up on a cart as it's hauled out somewhere else confuses me even more. I walk by with an eyebrow raised, but don't go near the opening of the warehouse where they're loading and entering, so none of them even bat an eye as I stroll on past. Another 5 minutes of quickly walking goes by and I see another group of 10 or so men wearing the same green flags on their waists doing the same thing on a smaller storage unit that seems to be half burned down on the other side. They're foraging for the goods that haven't been destroyed. Again, no one cares to turn their head as I walk by in the bright open light of day. Once I make my way into the center of town, I'm surprised to see no one outside. There's a center square with a large fountain that doesn't flow anymore sitting dry in the center of a nicely tiled walkway. Surrounding it on all sides are vacant shops and small markets that look like they used to sell clothes and food. Above some of the stores are what look to be apartments for the shopkeepers, and behind most of the shops, there are residential areas and even small parks where many people must have once lived. However, there isn't a soul in sight. It's not even the case of it being too early in the morning either, it's just that the whole town has been evacuated. Using a wide perception scan, most people are located only in the outer regions and sticking to a few select places. No one but me stands in the center here. I walk forward to the other side of town where I haven't ventured yet with a puzzled expression on my face, but soon sense two figures walking toward me that pique my interest. A level 296 and level 313 come out from behind a narrow street and make eye contact with me immediately. I sensed them the moment I left the center of town and made my way in their direction because their presence is the only one not moving away from the center of the settlement, and it doesn't seem like they're occupied in foraging for materials. One of them is a large man that towers over the other. He would be more intimidating if his size was purely muscle, but even from here, his rounded face tells me it's not all pure strength. The man next to him is completely the opposite, lanky and thin, and barely making it up to his partner's shoulders. Based on the gear he wears and the daggers on his waist, I can tell this guy relies on his speed. Sporting a fresh scar across his left eye, it's clear he's not afraid to fight either. Both of them are far below my league, but the red fabric hanging from their waists with a curved knife emblem on it makes me curious. The deep tone of the larger man's voice rings out through the empty street. Who do you think you are walking onto the Crimson Daggers territory at a time like this? Do you have a death wish, man? His skinny partner chuckles and pulls both the daggers from his waist, spinning them in his hands, and reflecting a red glow off the morning sun on the tips of the blades. He adds to his partner's words while eyeing me up and down. You aren't with the Green Mist, are you? Explain yourself, because we're going to have some problems if you don't start talking right now. As I think about what to reply, my all-seeing eye picks up on the presence of a skill activating. The visual of a dark purple, mana-imbued, shadowy hand erupts out of the body of the dagger wielder and comes shooting my way. Chapter 433. My eyes track the odd phenomenon, but the mana reading coming off it is so low I don't bother trying to dodge. I just continue walking forward with an innocent look on my face, responding out loud to the duo. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm new to town. I just ventured out here from a village up north. Heard there was opportunity to snag some free loot now that the sector leader went missing. Was I correct? As I finish these words, the shadowy hand expands and makes a motion to grasp around me. But the second it hits my chi barrier, it disintegrates and disperses on the spot. Nearly invisible black and purple energy sizzles away and gushes out to the sides, evaporating into the air. However, I don't bat an eye and walk forward like nothing happened. The larger man still looks at me with a menacing glare, but the skinny dagger user's eyes widen and he steps back. What was that dash? As his hand of mana mysteriously disappears, I activate appraisal to see exactly what just happened. The readings that meet my eyes are quite interesting. The large man has an extreme strength skill at the special grade rating, and his partner has a skill I've never seen before called bind rated at legendary grade. From the look of these two, I never would have expected such high-grade skills. My only theory that comes to mind is they stuck their noses in an upgrade crystal storage locker of some sort to artificially boost these ratings. The gear they're wearing is shiny and unused, plus there is practically zero mana control aura coming off of them. At level roughly 300 each, they should be putting out at least a little bit of aura. This is what a prime example of artificially power-leveled hunters look like. As I'm thinking this, the lanky man continues to speak, turning his head to the larger fellow. Raise, hold on to this weakling while I make sure he gets a good taste of my daggers. He's wearing some kind of protection item. My bind attack was reflected. The taller man smirks, turning to me and begins to glow bright gold. You got it, Finn. Let's see how he handles this. He stomps on the ground and makes large cracks in the nicely stone-tiled road, then comes charging toward me. I roll my eyes as he opens his arms to try and bear hug me with his strength alone, and put up a light wind barrier around my chi to give the man a chance to run if he wants. But he doesn't slow down at all, grabbing a hold of the outer layer of the invisible twisting mana barrier, yelling to his partner as it begins to rip his outer layer of armor to shreds. He has no grip on me at all as he just hugs violent wind magic a few centimeters above my skin, but doesn't back off and just bears the pain. I don't bother moving. I got him. Do it now. Finn runs in, attempting to slash my midsection with the two blades soaked in red liquid. My appraisal skill gets a reading on these as he gets closer. Stainless steel dagger set, plus 300 speed, plus 250 agility. Elixir of Suggestion. I activate my all-seeing eye as the daggers get closer to my thin barrier of wind, and their in-depth description intrigues me. If you find this story on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen. Please report the infringement. Elixir of Suggestion. Grade C+. Info. If this elixir is ingested or injected into the bloodstream of an enemy, their senses and cognitive reasoning will be dulled for up to 12 hours. Orders will be followed without question and care for one's own life and well-being will be forgotten. Crafter's note. This elixir's effects tend to lessen greatly above level 400 hunters, and are negligible to those who have ranked up. Excessive usage may lead to dependency. Small dosages are suggested. Just like my low-powered wind shielding slightly comes out from my chi barrier, I allow a large portion of my cloak to flutter out of the barrier on my other side where the dagger user is attacking. In my perception, it looks like just pure black fluttering mana-manifested fabric is peeking out. However, to the rogue with one eye approaching, my concealment abilities make it look as if my entire right side is wide open to an attack. He lets out a victorious yell and slashes through the weightless swirling black energy, but in his field of view, he's made 2 deep gashes on my side and sunk the red elixir deep into my bloodstream already. Let him go, Raze, we got another one. The golden glow of the giant man fades and I decide to play the part, falling backward to the floor and holding my side. At first, I was just going to kill both of them, take the scrawny one's skill, and move on with my spectating. But the fact that they're just trying to sedate me piques my curiosity. I'll hold off on my initial plan for the time being. Finn puts the daggers back on his waist while breathing heavily and looking straight at me. He throws a red cloth with a dagger logo on it down toward me. Stand up, put this on, follow us, and don't say a word. You've got yourself a new job. They both start to chuckle, and the tall man named Raze pulls out an HP potion to heal his wounded arms, muttering under his breath about how he needs to get new armor after that. Both of them don't even turn back to check on me. It seems like they've done this quite a few times before and have confidence in the elixir's powers. I stand to my feet and let out a sigh, following them through the streets without saying another word. If they're going to take me right to the action, I won't try and make things any more difficult than it has to be. The sun continues to rise overhead as we walk through this other part of town. Teams of about 10 to 15 are all working to clear out random warehouses and homes scattered all over the desert. Assembly lines are set up and none of their faces show any emotion. Hunters, businessmen, and average villagers all work together to load up large carts and haul them off to random locations. Everyone on this side of town has the same red fabric attached to their waistline. It's becoming a lot more clear to me that all of these people are under the influence of this elixir of suggestion. But the fact that there are 2 rival gangs doing seemingly the same thing on opposite sides of town makes my mind wander. As I bite my bottom lip and look up at the blue sky and white clouds, the dagger user calls out to me. Watch your step, we're going down. We walk into a small tavern that seems to be abandoned from the outside, but after walking through the front doors it's clear what this place really is. The inside of the old bar is completely emptied out, and right in front of the bar is a wide-open staircase down into the basement that looks like an awkwardly placed storm cellar in the middle of the wooden flooring. The 2 men disappear down into it, and I follow right after. I can sense an abundance of magic items down below us, High D and C grade items line the walls in piles, and some decent E and D grade items are even worn by about 20 people, all between level 20 and 200, standing still in 2 single file lines. As I make my way down the flight of steps, this is exactly what I see. The room is dimly lit with no decorations on the gray stone walls. Lines of men and women in new shiny gear all stare blankly in one direction. The scrawny man points to them and speaks to me. Get in line behind the closest person and don't move a muscle before we get back to give you orders. We'll be heading out in 2 squads to raid a newly discovered warehouse soon. I have to go check some things with the boss. I walk over to the nearest line and the 2 men walk off back up the stairs to leave the room in silence. I let out a sigh the moment they leave, disappointed at how easy it was to infiltrate their ranks. It's clear these 2 aren't professionals, but they're definitely using some heavy-duty magic items here. Anyone below a ranked-up status is at risk of falling victim to its spell. Whatever skill or item was used to imbue this elixir, it's no joke. I tap the middle-aged man in front of me on the shoulder a few times, but he doesn't budge or react at all. I step out of line and wave my hand in front of his face too, and he doesn't move or even blink. Then proceed to do the same for every other person in these 2 lines. After none of them seem to be conscious or able to think for themselves, I shrug and begin appraising all the gear and items left around in piles in this underground safehouse. Chapter 434. As I continue to pace inside the small stone room, I expand my all-seeing eye and enemy detection perks to follow the path of the 2 men that just left. To my surprise, they head back to the center of the city. It doesn't take more than a few minutes for the duo to make it all the way to the fountain square where I stopped not too long ago. Once they do, a large reading of dense mana erupts from the ground in that area for a few seconds. Then both of the men are completely gone from my radar. I raise an eyebrow at this, and think about using a much higher percentage of my mana control to do a deep scan of the city to see where they went. But doing that would be like putting a signal of my own out, probably much more intense than the one I just witnessed. It may not be a bad idea, but I'd like to scan my surroundings bit by bit first before I go all out with a scan that could give up my own location to someone with exceptionally keen eyes. However, while pondering this situation, a system notification rings in my mind. Skill transfer to main body. Complete. Screech. Legendary grade. My attention turns to this and I open my status to see what kind of skill my body double just farmed. Using my all-seeing eye, I read over the description a few times to conclude this isn't a skill I'll likely be activating often. It allows the caster to let out an ear-shattering screech up to 50 times louder than an average yell. Some of the special and legendary grade perks here state that this skill can be used to increase the volume of a normal voice over long areas, but this kind of skill isn't useful for a stealthy situation like this. Still, I'm happy there are some unique dungeons in that canyon, and by the look of how fast a new skill was farmed, this shows good odds that this one probably won't be the last today. As I close my status, the large influx of mana from the center of town comes back, and the 2 men show up in my enemy detection radar as clear as day. I get back in line, and once a few minutes pass, they come back down the steps inside the tavern. Finn, the dagger user, crosses his arms and speaks up. All right, I'm taking the team with the new guy. All of you follow me, we're doing the first 6-hour shift right now. The man at the front of the line I'm in perks up and begins to follow Finn. Then, everyone else in line does the exact same thing, following in an orderly fashion, so I do the same. As we leave up the stairs, the larger man says a similar thing to the second group, and they all begin following him too. We walk out into the open air and begin making our way further away from the center of town toward an empty small section of village. Finn speaks up from the front of the line as we approach a sturdy-looking locked steel door on a large wooden barn. Here's one of the irregular warehouses. The one-eyed man pulls out a large wheeled cart from an item box around his waist, using the invisible ghost-like hands to gently place it next to the door as 2 men begin to bash it open with body-hardening covered fists. It opens with a crash, and everyone floods inside to begin their work, getting into lines and sorting through the piles of meticulously marked untampered goods lining the walls of the warehouse. The story has been taken without consent. If you see it on Amazon, report the incident. I do a full appraisal to find there must be at least 2,000 items of decent quality in here. Some E grade, mostly D, and a few are even C. The dagger user speaks up again. C-grade gear goes in the cart. E and D will be sorted and left to pick up at a later date. Get to work. I'll be surveying the area for any green mist intruders. If you see anyone with a green flag on their waist, you're ordered to kill them on sight. He turns away as the last of us make our way into the wooden barn and begins moseying around the streets nearby. I walk in and pretend to be productive, but in reality, I'm just doing a bit of shopping for myself. Some time goes by and I slip a few crates of C-grade HP and MP potions into my storage along with interesting-looking unmarked crates with higher mana readings coming off of them, but overall most of this gear is just common low-grade goods. It's just items that would be sold to guilds training up new recruits, mercenaries for their armies and workers, or local shops in any hunter-friendly city. None of the mind-controlled worker do or say anything when they witness me acting differently than them. They just carry on with their tasks as usual. I would be bored out of my mind, but the constant ringing in my head is keeping me very occupied. Skill transfer to main body. Complete. Phantom step. Legendary grade. Skill transfer to main body. Complete. Flare. Legendary grade. Skill transfer to main body. Complete. Confusion. Legendary grade. Skill transfer to main body. Complete. Blast. Legendary grade. For new skills come in, and they're much more interesting than the first one I received. Phantom step is a movement technique that creates multiple phantom-like visuals, confusing the opponent so they're unsure of which direction the caster really went. Flare summons an incredibly bright light used for blinding an opponent to escape from battle or use a sneak attack. The legendary grade perk allows it to be ejected from the caster, with mana control strength varying its distance of the shot. Confusion has similar properties to my intimidation skill, but it leaves the ones afflicted in a dazed state only until the skill is deactivated. Lastly, Blast allows the caster to explode anything they make contact with. It is a self-destructing skill, so if the user activates it on the wrong portion of their body or channels too much mana into it, it could be a fatal move. While studying the intricacies of these new skills and wondering how to add them to my usual battle strategies, I continue to keep a close eye on the dagger wielder that patrols the streets around this block. He keeps doing the same routes, going in circles and staying within 200 meters or so from the warehouse. His bind skill is sporadically activated every time he rounds a sharp corner like he's on guard and ready to fight. Interestingly enough, the further I let my detection range go out, the more fascinating this city becomes. At first, it seemed random and unorganized, but after about 3 hours of studying the movements of everyone within a 5 kilometers radius from myself, it's clear to see there's many teams of level 250 to 350 guards handling small sectors of land. There are warehouses being raided systematically, and the C grade and higher items are all being separated from the E and D grades brought to different safe houses. This would be very standard behavior if it wasn't for the fact that both this Crimson Dagger gang and the Green Mist on the other side of town were doing the exact same looting strategy. The systematic process that both of them loot and separate their gear is identical to each other, and it doesn't make any sense. On some of the spare material in this warehouse, I begin writing down an exact mapped-out system of where every guard is located, and which warehouses are currently being looted while also marking ones I pick up on my perception skill that have seemingly not been found or messed with yet. I slowly let out more of my mana control once I'm positive no one in this general vicinity is capable of detecting me, and the only mystery that still remains is a large rectangular bunker I find on my radar beneath the fountain in the middle of the city. It's hidden well, but once I begin using over 1/3 of my mana control solely on perception skills, it begins to appear to me. However, even if I can sense that it's there, it doesn't mean I can see inside. The mana shielding covering this bunker is incredibly strong. The more mana control I use up, the more I believe it's possibly on par with the shielding back in the walls of the Galeheart Tower. For some reason, I can't see through them at all. That's exactly where Finn and Raze left to go meet their so-called boss earlier this morning. This is exactly where I'd like to go next. Finn comes strolling back toward the barn on his routine route, but this time stops in front with his hands on his hips and calls out, "All right, 10-minute lunch break. I don't want all of you dying on me, so stop working for a moment so you can eat and drink these." He pulls out bars of food and dried meat that look like they've been sitting in a storage locker for years along with cases of water bottles tinted light pink. Immediately, I pick up on small traces of mana in the liquid, and my appraisal skill detects traces of the same elixir of suggestion in the drinks. Chapter 435. Everyone around begins to line up and take the rations. Then Finn speaks up again, looking through the people that approach him. All right, who was it keeping notes this time? I forget who's who sometimes. You all look alike to me. It'd be a lot easier if I asked your names before you all went under. He chuckles to himself and makes a light remark under his breath. Oh well, the ones that aren't useful are just going to be left to die out in this desert once we're done clearing this town out anyway. Then, turns to a woman who approaches him carrying a stack of notes. She has tan skin, dark black hair cut short just above her shoulders, and looks to be no older than myself, possibly 20 or 21 if I had to guess. Despite the eerie lifeless stare everyone has on, her eyes look a bit different. They're light blue, so light that they almost look white, but there seems to be a hint of consciousness underneath them. Still, the young woman gives the stack of notes to Finn without saying a word. He takes them in a quick and aggressive manner, turning away and reading them on his own, muttering under his breath again for everyone to hear. Damn, another dud warehouse. A few gold worth of C-class gear, but nothing too special. Oh well, it's good enough to give as a midday report to the boss. Then, turns back around to face everyone while stuffing the papers marking down all the tracked inventory in his back pocket. All right, drink up, eat up, then back to work. I want to see everything cleared out of here before we move on to the next warehouse of the night shift. You got it. He looks at the woman that's standing still right in front of him, and a single tear falls from her eye. I watch her lower lip quiver as well, and curiously do a full scan to find she's a fairly high level with a skill I've never seen before. LV 267. Moonlight's Gaze. The man grits his teeth at the sight of her small bit of defiance, then yells in her face. That means you too. He gets closer to her and a moment of realization hits him. Oh right, you're that girl. One of the only ones still useful from that wandering group of villagers we captured in Sector 4, weren't you? Your leader sure put up quite the fight against the boss. He scoffs. It doesn't matter now though, does it? You know you'll just be a mindless pawn for the rest of your life. So drink up and get back to it. He uses his bind skill to grab an extra bottle from the pile, making it float in the air over to her as she accepts it without question. Then smirks and yells at her again. You know what, no food for you, just a double dose of elixir. That'll teach you. Drink these and get back to work. He grabs his daggers from his waist, pointing them at her while forcing the drinks into her hands using his bind skill. Then uses the same dark hands to push her elbows to bring the pink bottles closer to her trembling lower lip. I watch in disgust, but as soon as the bottle touches her mouth, I decide to act. If you encounter this tale on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. I wanted to stay here and watch how things worked a little longer, but I've seen enough. I point a single finger at the man from over 10 meters away and let out a blade of advanced wind magic so dense and thin it'd be impossible to see without ranked-up perception skills. It slices through both of his arms and severs the floating purple hand in the air in an instant. The drinks fall from her grip, hitting the sandy desert floor beside the grunt's severed arms still gripping the crimson daggers. He yells out in pain, looking around to see who cut off his arms, falling to his knees as a puddle of blood begins to form. How? How did you do this? You dash. With eyes full of rage and confusion. He turns his head side to side, trying to find who did such a thing to him. I walk through the small crowd of workers with my arms crossed, staring right at the man who's begun to bleed out on the floor. Then, stand over him and begin asking some questions while activating my telekinesis skill. How long have all of you been in business here? Seems like quite the operation you've got. Huh. I pull the paper notes from his back pocket before they get stained by the pile of blood forming in the sand. He activates his bind skill at the same moment, but I use Plunderer to drain every last drop of MP from his body before the dense purple hands can fully form. Come on, tell me something. I was having fun spying on all of you. At least tell me your leader's name. Or am I going to have to find that out for myself when I give him a visit? He grits his teeth, and I hear a small crack of glass coming from inside his mouth. Then the sour smell of poison hits my nose. Oh no, you don't. I use the same thin wind slash to cut the man in two. Use absorption. Skill. Bind. Legendary grade. Yes. No. I choose yes and shake my head. He was not in the mood to talk at all. At least I finished him off before he killed himself. Using very condensed advanced fire magic, I burn his remains to ash. Even the sand stained with blood melts away beneath him, and all that remains from this entire interaction is a hole in the ground burnt black and the woman with light blue eyes still staring straight ahead, with tears streaming down her cheeks now. I wave my hand in front of her face a few times and call out to her. Hello? Hello? But there's no response. I can see sporadic movements in her small black pupils, but nothing more. Stop moving your eyes if you can hear me. They stop. Now move them again if you can. They move again with even more vigor than before. My gaze tightens. How did you all get in this situation? Her eyes don't stop moving, but she doesn't say a word. I realize she isn't going to be able to answer any complicated questions for a while. So, it would be a better use of my time to go search things out myself. If that elixir lasts for up to 12 hours on people with low mana control, pretty much everyone here will be running on fumes for quite a while. I turn to all the other drone-like workers and give a command. Whatever you do, do not drink another drop of the water given to you by this man. I pull one of the crates of E-class potions out from the storage locker and use telekinesis to empty them all out into the sand. Then, use my new water magic skill to summon pure drinking water into the emptied glass jars and containers. I make a pile of corked clean drinking water. Drink from this pile only if you're thirsty. As they walk over to the clean water, I use advanced fire magic to destroy every last diluted elixir in the area, then turn back to the woman with the wavering eyes. I give her some leftover food from my item storage and a potion bottle full of clean water for herself. These are for you, drink and eat up. Go rest inside the warehouse until you come to your senses. I look up at everyone else drinking clean water one by one in a single file line. All of you will do the same. Stay inside this warehouse and rest. Most of them drank more elixir when Finn told them to moments ago, so they're in for another 12 hours of mindless wandering. But this woman should have far less time under the influence. If I'm not back before you come to your senses, listen to her. She'll be in charge here, understood? I point to the black-haired woman, and all of the hypnotized workers do exactly as I said, slowly walking back into the empty barn. The woman turns too, walking back into the barn without saying a word. As the door shuts, I let out a sigh and use my conceal skill to shift my cloak and appearance into an exact replica of Finn, the dagger user. Gripping the notes from the day's work of labor, I smile and turn in the direction of the fountain in the middle of town. Nearby, I sense the presence of Raze, Finn's partner, making his way toward the middle of town already. Then, expanding my enemy detection skills range, I find readings of about 8 more people all making similar routes. No one from the Green Mist changes their formation, but everyone on this side of town in the Crimson Dagger does. I begin my walk toward the hidden base in the center of town just like everyone else. It's time to meet the boss. Chapter 436. The closer I get to the center of town, the more consolidated the groups of hunters become, approaching the dry fountain. I properly adjust my chi barrier to the level of mana output I felt around Finn and test out my new bind skill a few times just to see how it works and get the hang of its abilities. The hand I'm able to summon is much darker and denser with mana. It seems like it's similar to my mana manipulation skill, but with the sole purpose of holding things in place. The legendary perk that shapes it into a movable and adjustable hand gives the skill a bit more flexibility, letting the caster hold and move objects, but overall, it is more of a defensive or utility skill than anything else. I'll most likely only be using this on far lower mana control levels than myself. Using it in full-out battle would not be optimal usage. However, if I make the mana dense enough for hunters to see, it can be a very intimidating floating purple hand. I think about testing out my other 5 skills my body double obtained from the dungeons, but they may be a bit too flashy to use in the center of town while I'm in disguise. As the center square comes into view, I put these ideas to rest and meet up with all of the other grunts that serve this boss. At first, I'm a bit worried I'll have to talk to some of them, and I'm not sure if Finn was friends with any of these other grunts in particular. But the odd scene I stumble upon puts my worries to rest. 3 of the men are already here, but they stand with their hands by their sides and look at the fountain with solitary stares, and none of them say a word to one another. Ray's pops out of an alley nearby and gives me a nod with a grin, but doesn't say a word, keeping his head down and finding a place to stand next to the fountain in silence. Hesitantly, I do the same, standing about 3 meters away from a random level 334 man dressed in shiny armor and an assortment of colorful magic rings with a legendary swordsmanship skill. He sports a bright red flag on his waist. I know full well how unique and powerful a skill like this is. It gives the user exact critical hit lines if used right, but again, this man's mana control is nearly non-existent. He's recently been given an upgrade crystal and power level 2. As all of the other higher-level grunts of the Crimson Dagger show up, they give off the same readings. Every one of them has max upgraded skills and are all nearing or over level 300, but don't seem as strong as they should be. Once the final grunt gets information, the entire square is filled with 10 of us surrounding the fountain on all sides. No one says a word. They all just stare straight ahead. Some have stacks of papers in hand, while others have them in their pockets. A few look nervous, while some look excited, and others just don't show any emotion at all. Then, I feel the ground begin to shake, hear a mechanical noise, and the center of the fountain begins to glow white. The mana shielding below the fountain cracks open, and I can finally begin to sense what's inside. After a few seconds, it looks as if it's filled with white energy, and the center of the fountain disappears in the white glow. The mana-imbued energy is very immense, and it feels just like what I sensed last time Finn and Ray's disappeared from my radar. As the bright white light dims, what is left in its place is equally as intriguing. A spiral metal staircase has opened up in the center of the city, and it leads down into the mana-shielded bunker I sensed before. Stolen story. Please report. Portions of the shielding are now available for me to sense on the inside and outside, so I take this opportunity to do a full scan with my all-seeing eye. It's incredibly dense, similar to that of the Galeheart Tower's shielding, so it makes sense why I'm unable to see through it. However, I'm positive it's not unbreakable. With enough chi infused in an attack, I'm sure I could break this barrier down with ease if necessary. One by one, the Crimson Dagger grunts walk inside. The tunnel goes down about 30 meters and is well lit with bright white lights. I follow in line without saying a word in the middle of the pack. Once the last person in line follows, I hear the same mechanical mechanism close the fountain above and a wall of mana shielding cover it up from the surface. It's thick enough to block all my senses from the outside world, but I'm not too worried. My curiosity is more piqued than ever now that there's this much advanced security here. We all make it to the bottom of the stairway and find ourselves standing in an empty white box of mana shielding. It looks very similar to a replica of the inner portion of the Titan's domain, just about 1/4 the size, and there's hardly any ambient mana in the air. Only a small amount coming off the mana-shielded walls. There are the metal spiral steps at the back of the room that lead up to the now blocked-off surface, and nothing else in the room at all. The men begin to line up against the sidewall, so I follow and play my role, taking out the notes from my back pocket just like everyone else does. We all wait against the back wall and stare forward, waiting for something to happen. There are 4 grunts to my left and 5 to my right. Ray's is 2 spots away from me on the right, with only one other man in between us. He's closer to the stairs. Almost 5 minutes of silence goes by, only to be drowned out by the low hum of the energy in the room before something finally happens. The back wall we're all staring at opens up in the shape of a rectangular door, and a figure in a large suit of red armor walks out. Printed on the chest plate is an even darker crimson logo of the knife that is on everyone's sashes. Locked to his sides, he has 2 bright red daggers in holsters ready to use. Head to toe, the figure is completely covered in heavy gear, and I can't help but do a full appraisal, inspect, and all-seeing eye scan. LV. 589. Active items. Crimson Daggers of Speed, Blood Bonded, plus 130% speed, plus 122% agility. Poison Attribute, Access Denied. Active Skills, A. Access Denied. Buffs, A. Access Denied. The armor he wears is fully imbued with the same analysis-blocking enchantment that Lith and many of the sector leaders wear. At the small amount of mana control I'm letting out, the only thing I'm able to see is the figure's level and the daggers that are seemingly not affected by the protection enchantment. He wears them as a prize for all to see, it seems. I'm positive I could see through his defenses entirely if I boosted my perception, but don't want to give myself away just yet. This figure is high enough level that I assume they'd be able to sense if I let out any extra power. A deep echoing tone calls out from the red armored helmet as he turns his head to the guard closest to the stairs, then carries his gaze over everyone else in the room for a few seconds before landing on the last person. Good. Everyone's here. One at a time. Let's see the morning results. He walks over to the man closest, to the stairs very slowly, then comes to a halt just in front of him with outstretched hands to accept the papers from the shaking hands of the grunt. Then, takes almost a full minute flipping through the sheets of papers before nodding one time. The moment he does, the man in front of him lets out a relieved sigh, and he begins to walk up the stairs. Echoing footsteps trail down as he makes his way to the top, and the red suit of armor takes the notes from the next man in line. As the footsteps stop, I sense the man just waiting up above at the top of the stairs looking up at the ceiling, but it doesn't open up. A few more seconds pass before the boss nods again, and the second man in line moves to the exit. It repeats exactly the same for the third in line as the boss gives him a nod, and he makes his way up the stairs to wait with the others. Next, Reyes confidently gives his papers to the boss with a slight grin on his face as the armored man reads them up and down. Moments later, he responds while reaching into a small compartment on his waist. Quite the interesting find there. Reyes, good work. A gold coin flips in the air toward him as the armored man nods and continues to walk to the next man right next to me. Reyes catches it and hurries up the stairs in the same manner as everyone else. Just a few moments pass before the guard to my right is sent up the stairs, and the red armored man looks at me. I hand the papers over and immediately get a response before the boss even looks at the notes. No ghost hands today? Finn. What's the special occasion? Chapter 437. I look up at the man and shake my head a few times in response. He looks down at me but doesn't say a word. We stand in silence for a moment, and I notice the grunt to my left has shaking hands. In the moment of pause, I can hear the papers flutter together. The red armored boss notices this too, turning his head to him for a moment, then back to me, then shrugs, flipping through my papers quickly and eventually nodding just like the last 5 men. I activate my bind skill with very little mana control seeping through my chi barrier to manifest a weak purple hand, bringing it to my forehead to salute the boss while walking away up the stairs. To everyone else, it looks as if I just walked off, but to the man under the suit, his response tells me he's capable of sensing this skill. There it is, he mutters to himself. As I walk up the stairs, another grunt in line has his paper processed, and the moment I step onto the cold metal steps, a scream comes out from the shaking man's mouth as he hands over his papers. I sense an ominous aura coming out from the red suit of armor and watch the 2 men using the legendary perk of my enemy detection skill from a distance as I carry on up the stairs at an even rate not to draw suspicion. A thick cloud of red mist comes out from the boss armor cracks and enters the grunt's eyes, mouth, nose, and ears like it has a mind of its own. As he screams out in pain, his body is lifted above the ground and blood begins to ooze out of every point that the mysterious mist entered. However, none of the blood hits the floor. It all consolidates into a crimson orb between them both. My mind races as I detect an absurd amount of mana flowing through the blood orb. It gives off an interesting aura. One that I have never felt before exactly but seems oddly familiar. The armored man lets the blood seep in through the small crack in his helmet, Then my reading of the mana gets covered by the analysis blocking enchantment. In the same instance, the floating grunt falls to the floor, breathing heavily, drained of mana almost entirely, but is still alive. The boss speaks while he moves on to the next in line. That's a reminder for all of you. If your warehouses aren't producing any higher grade items, move on to the next one. Don't waste your time sifting through trash. We need to get out of here before any sector leaders show up. The grunt coughs and dry heaves on the ground but eventually brings himself to his feet and walks up the stairs to follow as the next grunt hands in his paperwork. The following interactions go smoothly, and the last man in line even gets a gold coin just like Ray's for finding something valuable. The door at the back of the main bunker opens up again and the boss walks through. He yells out for all of us to hear before disappearing behind the thick mana shielding. See you all in 3 hours for the midday reports. Get back to work. As his door clicks shut, the mechanical sound starts up above us and the fountain opens to show us the sunlight of the outside world. We all step out into the square, and many of the Crimson Dagger men scurry off in opposite directions back to their posts. Even the man that was attacked with that odd blood magic skill limps off back to his station pretty quickly. Raze waves me down from the other side of the fountain and speaks up as he turns to leave down the alleyway I first saw him pop out from. This tale has been unlawfully lifted from Royal Road. If you spot it on Amazon, please report it. I knew the boss would like what I found. I managed to dig up a whole new crate of those elixirs he likes. Jackpot. He laughs to himself then speaks up again. Well, see you for dinner tonight. Another 2 long shifts ahead of us. Good luck with your new guy. I give him a wave but don't speak, and the entire square is cleared out in under a minute. I look around curiously, then start to walk back toward the workers I left in that barn. Maybe with the clean food and water, that woman has come back to her senses. However, the moment I begin walking back is the same instance I detect every single one of the Green Mists members on the other side of the small city start to break their usual formation. I stop in my tracks and expand my perception's range a lot more to see every last one of them start moving toward the center of town in the exact same manner the Crimson Dagger men did less than half an hour ago. I slip into a side alley within visual range of the center square and activate my stealth skill, curious to see what happens next. Less than 10 minutes later, 13 men in shiny new gear all between level 250 and 350 make a circle around the fountain. They wear green flags on their waists just like the workers I saw when I first entered the village. Moments later, the fountain erupts in a display of white mana, and the members enter one by one down the steps. I watch with a curious gaze for a few seconds but decide to check things out for myself and follow the grunts with my maxed out legendary grade stealth skill activated. My footsteps are silent, and my aura is completely concealed as I watch all 13 men line up against the back wall of the bunker, waiting for their boss to show up. The exit to the surface closes, and I make my way down onto the ground level as well, standing next to the stairs on the far right side of the room. Once the back door opens, a nearly identical suit of armor walks out. Only this time it's bright green with a black diamond on the chest plate. My baseline appraisal and inspect skills activate, but not much shows up other than the towering figure's raw level. LV 606. Active items. A. Access denied. Active skills. A. Access denied. Buffs. A. Access denied. I stand unseen as each of the Green Mist members hands in their papers and gets nods to leave up the stairs. Some receive gold coins, but it isn't until the second to last grunt until anger starts to flare up in the armored man's tone. How many times do I have to tell you men? If a warehouse has nothing of value in it, move to the next. He pauses, turning his head to the staircase and yelling. I hope you all hear this. I want results and I want them fast. No more lazing about. He glows green, and a mist similar to the other boss pours out from his armor. The last man that has nothing to do with this mess backs away and covers his nose and mouth. In the same moment, I see dozens of green needles form around the armored boss, and they all fly forward into the grunt, and he yells out in agony. I watch his skin change color from light tan to dark green in a matter of seconds until he shrivels up on the floor, and the yelling stops. There's a moment of silence before the boss walks over to the last man and takes his papers, nods, and speaks up in a calm tone, pointing back at the shriveled-up man on the floor. "It looks like we've had an accident here. Dispose of the body and take over his work team. We don't want to fall behind before we leave in a few days." The grunt nods quickly and picks up the body without hesitating, but still holds his breath while hurrying up the stairs. The boss walks to the back of the room, and the rectangular door opens up while he yells for all to hear. "I'll see you all in 3 hours for the midday check-in. Do not come until you get my call. Get back to work." He disappears behind the door, and it shuts. Then the mechanical doors back up to the outside world opens too. A few thoughts go through my mind as I decide whether or not I should leave with the green mist grunts or stay inside and try to figure out what's going on here further. The green armored boss voice sounds very similar to the man in the red armor. But there's a hint of extra experience in his tone, and their levels are different, plus the fact that they have very different skills debunks my initial suspicions that they were the same person. I nod to myself as I make my decision. About a minute later, the fountain door shuts, and I'm left alone in the mana shield room. I'm about to do a deeper scan of the underground fortress with my all-seeing eye, but another mechanical noise makes me stop and listen closer. The entire back wall begins to slide down into the floor, revealing another full portion of the bunker that doubles its size, making this space more of a square rather than a long rectangle. However, it's the sight that I see on the other side that leaves my eyes open wide. Crates of high C and B grade gear line the back walls of the hidden room, and in the center of it is a large handcrafted table and chairs. There is a large expensive-looking bottle of champagne on its center. The clinking of 2 glasses hits my ears, and I see 2 helmets beside the large bottle. One is red, and the other is green. Chapter 438. Clink. The man in the red suit of armor has spiky ginger hair and bright blue eyes. "Brother, we're finally going to break into the big leagues after this one. I can't believe the entire stash of that old Sector 2 leader was left out to rot in the desert." The man in the green armor sports a buzz cut, and his black eyes match the color of the short trim. His facial features make him look a bit older than his orange-haired brother. "It only took us a few days to get this town under control, and the progress today will clear out most of the surface warehouses. Their analysis enchantment is still active despite their armor helmets being off, but just by the sound of their voices and levels, it's clear that both the leader of the Crimson Dagger and the Green Mist sitting together at a table are celebrating their success. This revelation was definitely in the realm of possibilities that I was thinking up, but the fact that they're brothers, and so blatantly manipulating their grunts to do their dirty work is surprising. Both of them drink their entire glass of alcohol, and the man in the green armor pours them both another. He speaks up as they clink glasses again. "So, how should we go about moving forward from here? This distribution city is by far our most profitable plunder yet. I say we play it cool after this one. Don't want anyone getting too hot on our tail." The ginger man nods and replies after taking a drink. "Agreed." He thinks to himself for a moment, and I reach into my item storage to pull out a glossy blue gem as he does. Still under the protection of my stealth skill, I channel MP into the recording crystal Lith gifted me before I left. The information that's about to be shared seems like details that these two don't ever want escaping this bunker, and I intend to use it to my advantage. The crystal creates a recording array around the whole back of the room, encompassing all of the stacked riches, fancy bottles, and most importantly the 2 undisguised gang leaders openly conversing. The man in the red suit of armor finally makes his point. "We both picked up quite a few members over the last couple of months. I think it's about time for a thinning. What do you think?" They both grin slyly to each other, and the older brother responds, "I was thinking the same thing. A gang war to keep only the strongest handful of guards moving forward is a fine idea. It's not like we need those weaklings anyway. Any new city we go to will have more grunts for us to choose from." He shrugs and lets out a chuckle. "We might as well kill them all ourselves before we leave. Sharing the riches we've found in this town would be a waste." They both laugh to themselves and pour out another drink. Over the next half hour, they get more and more drunk, even to the point of opening another bottle. They recount the events of different towns they raided and other times they betrayed and manipulated their gangs to fight each other under different aliases. My eyes widened at their words, and I get some interesting insight on how they run their scheme. Ever since both of them ranked up, it seems their power gap among weak hunters in the Dark Continent has blown their ego far out of proportion. However, their crime tactics are pretty smart. They scour the edges of the abyss and wait for towns and villagers in need that have been driven from their homes, giving them food, work, and most recently after they stumbled across a certain elixir of suggestion. The two of them have been making systematic teams of high-level grunts and low-level workers to raid and pillage small towns all over. This tale has been unlawfully lifted without the author's consent. Report any appearances on Amazon. However, every one of their drunken tales ends with them killing a majority of the people that have helped them, especially the mindless working slaves. My anger builds as I remember the tear falling down that woman's face as she tried to disobey the grunt's command but failed due to the elixir. It makes me want to challenge and kill both of them on the spot. But as I look around the room even more, I come to an even better plan. On the back wall, resting on top of one of the crates full of high-grade items, I see a small silver tablet with 3 large buttons on the front side. The distance isn't far, and my advanced eyesight is more than good enough to see middle door, middle wall, exit door as the options. I stop channeling mana into my recording crystal and stow it away in my item storage. In the same moment, I begin to leave the large open room and hide halfway behind the stairwell, looking up at the closed door above. With a light activation of telekinesis, I flip one of the small silver enchanted rings out from a pile of loot in the back room to fall directly on top of the button that says, Exit Door. Immediately, both men's heads turn toward the fallen item and stand from their seats, activating their red and green mist abilities. At the same time, a mechanical sound opens the door above to the outside world. I activate Extreme Speed and zip out of the opening crack in the ceiling as both men yell out, Who's there? And show yourself, facing the back wall of their bunker. Once out into the street, I can already see the fountain closing shut again as one of them pressed the button to do so, but I can't help grinning to myself as a plan to bring this operation to the floor comes to mind. I reach into my storage and pull out the black mask I used at the arena in Valor City and put it on. After that, I use the concealment attribute of my cloak to turn my outfit into what looks like a black business suit, but add a unique touch to make it look like it is constantly flickering with black flames. I allow the perception of flames to change colors beneath my mask, so it looks like golden yellow light comes out from the eye holes of the mask. On top of this display, I put up my chi barrier to the max, so even though I look like a walking businessman on fire, my presence is completely concealed, so it feels as if I'm not even here. Once this is done, my hunt for every single grunt in the city begins. Whether they're from the Crimson Dagger or Green Mist, this is not my concern. The first one I decide to go after is the familiar man that helped to get me into this whole mess. As I round the corner, the round face and tall stature of Reyes comes into view. I allow just enough of my intimidation skill to pour out of my barrier to make it noticeable, but don't want the range to spread too far or knock out the grunt here. The moment his eyes meet the flaming man walking toward him, his gaze turns to one of fright. Earlier when he faced me, he ran into battle without thinking twice, but just by looking at my new form, something deep within his intuitive battle instincts makes him turn to run without questioning me at all. I calmly walk down the empty street and activate my new skill, Confusion, to send out a weak wave through my chi barrier, just enough to stop him in his tracks and fall to his knees holding his head. A few seconds pass as I walk to stand in front of him, then deactivate my Confusion skill to watch his mental torment immediately cease, but the second he looks up to meet my fiery gaze, his skin turns pale and his eyes glaze over. I speak in a calm and professional tone. You may call me the Flame Emperor. I am not here to harm you, so don't try to kill yourself. I'll be taking over this town and giving you an opportunity. I have much to show you, so please follow me. I get ready to use more of my intimidation aura, or even ramp up the flames a bit to stop him from using the poison capsule like Finn tried when I attacked him, but the man's eyes just open wider and wider, and sweat begins to pour down the sides of his face. I turn around without saying a word and begin walking slowly toward the warehouse his team was working on organizing. None of them react to my presence as they're under strong hypnosis magic, but they follow my orders to rest for the day and to wait until my return to follow any other orders. After this, I move toward the next closest Crimson Dagger grunt. As we turn the corner and my fiery eyes lock with his, a very similar interaction plays out. 7 more just the same all tremble before my aura and presence. However, a few start whispering to each other the longer I let them walk behind me unharmed. There were 2 that needed a little convincing, so I dropped them to their knees with my intimidation skill combined with confusion. One of them even tried to run away using a special grade extreme speed skill. However, just to make it clear that I'm not playing around, I point a finger at him from over 20 meters away and send a pea-sized advanced fireball wrapped in dense wind energy in his direction. The instant it makes contact with his back, the man explodes into a ball of flames that tears down half of a small building in the aftermath. After this display, no one says a word or steps out of line. I make my way to the other side of town and the visual displeasure of the Crimson Dagger grunts grows. The first man of the Green Mist goes into full attack mode the moment he sees a group of Crimson Daggers. However, I make it very clear I'm in charge and no extra fighting will be going on. One by one, I collect every one of the Green Mist's lackeys and only have to burn one of them to a crisp that runs away to prove my point to the new guys. They separate into 2 groups, but hold themselves back from fighting each other in fear of facing the same fate as the others that have disobeyed. Once I finish my march around town collecting everyone, I bring them inside one of the large abandoned warehouses that has already been raided and take out my recording crystal to turn it on against a large blank wall. It begins to replay the conversation of their leaders. Watch this. Don't move a muscle or say a word until it has completely finished. Chapter 439. The conversation between brothers, bragging and laughing about backstabbing their men countless times for profit, plays in its entirety for every member of both gang to see. There are 20 of them in total. 12 from the Green Mist remain, and 8 from the Crimson Dagger. Their eyes widen more and more with every word said on the recording. I stand in silence behind them, watching closely while I think about exactly what I'll be doing next. As the video hits its end and starts up again from the beginning, I stow it away into a pocket of my burning suit that leads to a small item storage portal. The grunts begin to get restless as they sit on the hard floor of the warehouse, so I speak. Stand up and speak your mind. Whatever you say for the next minute will not have any repercussions. Instantly, a series of mixed remarks come my way in the form of yells, solemn silent stares, and questions about how I got that footage. Some question its validity, while others believe every word and are having moments of clarity, cursing out their leaders because they suspected something like this was going on all along. Overall, anger and mixed emotions fill the room, and I let them discuss it amongst themselves for a moment before speaking up. Good. Now that you all understand what's really going on, it's time for me to confront your leaders. You're all going to watch. They all nod in silence as I let the black flames around me grow slightly bigger and the golden yellow glow from my eyes shine brighter. After I'm done with them, we'll talk about the future of this town. I turn to face the door. Follow me. We all walk out from the warehouse and the stern looks and overly negative attitude toward me have faded. Now the men are only fearful and questioning their decisions in life. I bring them to the center of town and order them all to stand back in a group in front of one of the abandoned shops in the square. Far enough away not to be within the range of whispers, but close enough to see me stand right in front of it with my arms crossed in a relaxed stance. We wait in the square in total silence for almost half an hour until I feel an eerie presence watching. The moment I shift my gaze in all directions, then finally upward, it disappears and the fountain opens up with a bright white flash of mana-imbued light. I'm unsure if I felt this the last time I witnessed the doors of the bunker open, but I wasn't this close up to it. I brush off the feeling, but stay on high alert moving forward. It's about time for the Crimson Daggers check-in meeting, but their leader is going to get quite the unexpected surprise. I turn back to the grunts and speak. I'll be back in a minute. If you even think about running before I come out, you're dead. Then, walk down the spiral staircase into the mana-shielded bunker with a confident and steady pace. Once I get to the bottom, the middle door opens and the man in bright red armor comes charging out with both his crimson daggers already in his hands. Red fog comes seeping out from his armor as he lunges closer. "Intruder! What have you done with my men? What is the meaning of this?" I sidestep using extreme speed to dodge his incoming strike and move to the far side of the room. Upon seeing my agility, the man's anger rises and even more of the red mist plumes out from the crack in his armor. It begins to drift toward me in a wave of energy impossible to dodge, but I just tighten my chi barrier's density, and not a drop makes its way through. Half of the room is filled with his red mist, but it is blocked from touching me with a barrier of invisible energy just a few centimeters above my skin and clothes. I stand ominously in the back of the room, not putting out a drop of aura while flickering with black and golden flames. The narrative has been illicitly obtained. Should you discover it on Amazon, report the violation. "Brother, come out here. We have a pest to get rid of," he yells in a stern tone. Still filled with confidence, I question what other tricks these two have up their sleeves. Without a moment of hesitation, the man in the green suit of armor comes charging through the open middle door. He has a large silver warhammer in hand that I didn't see before. Once both of them lock their gazes on me, I make a run for the exit. I could have easily used maximum buffs and speed boosts to zip out of the bunker in an instant, but I limit my mana control output to about 1/8 of its full potential beneath my chi barrier to make them believe they have a fighting chance. I narrowly dodge 2 red dripping daggers covered in poison and a hammer that hits the ground right behind me, sending vibrations through the entire shielded structure. I run up the stairs and out onto the surface, yelling to the grunts, "Get back and watch closely. We're about to have some company." I speed off to the opposite side of the square where the grunts aren't waiting, and 2 glowing suits of armor follow me filled with rage, aim to kill. I jump up on top of one of the one-story shops at the edge of the square using wind magic and turn around, drawing my flaming sword that now flickers with dark flames to match my suit while smiling wide underneath my mask for no one else to see but myself. The 2 armored bosses pay no attention to their henchmen and jump up in the air to attack me. Mid-flight, I see a thick red barrier of what looks like mana-imbued blood forming around the red man's armor and daggers. Simultaneously, dozens of tiny green needles all manifest around the green armored man while 2 clouds of mist trail both of their in sync and powerful strides. They both jump high above me, making my high ground useless, stepping off of mana-imbued barriers summoned in the sky to lunge down at me and attack. I release more of my mana control, now letting 1/4 of it out so my intimidation skill can hit both of the men as they jump in the air toward me. However, they bear the pressure and release their attacks. I block the red daggers with my sword in a swift strike. The chi surrounding my blade evaporates the poison covering them and shatters them to pieces. My sword pierces through the red barrier made of blood that covers his body and pierces a hole right through the Crimson Dagger logo on his chest plate, sending him back down toward the ground where he came from. In the same instant, I stop the spiked hammer aiming for my left shoulder with an open palm, and its momentum halts. The miniature green needles that rain down on me are all stopped by my invisible barrier of chi as well. To the perspective of the men that cannot sense chi, it looks as if my black flames have eaten their attacks and fallen into an endless fiery abyss, doing no damage to me at all. With a tight grip on the older brother's warhammer, I release a wave of advanced fire magic flames that engulfs his weapon and spreads to the rest of his body, while throwing him downward to the road below following his partner. There are 2 loud earth-shattering thuds as each of them hits the stone road and cracks the pavement, making craters. I jump down to get between them and the fountain, holding my blade upright and waiting for the dust to settle. Surprisingly, they both get up from the ground pretty quickly. The green mist leader's armor protects him from the dark flames that eat away at his enchanted gear for the time being, and a red glow and swirling orbs of blood enter the Crimson Dagger's wound as he stands to his feet. I let out more of my mana control, allowing them to perceive just over of my true strength for a moment, and focus on activating my intimidation skill directly in their direction. They both fall to their knees again, but I see clouds of green mist and red liquid energy escape their bodies and trail off behind me in the direction of their subordinates that witnessed their utter defeat, and are now backing away to avoid the release of excess mana in our clash. I realize what they're trying to do and let out my natural mana control even further, letting out just under without any buffs activated other than intimidation to bring them from their knees to face planting down in the pavement. The green needles and deadly crimson liquid hit a pink dome of mana that I summon using my mana manipulation skill on the other side of the fountain to stop them from harming their men. I don't think so. I feel their powers dampening and their minds slipping away as they're being overpowered by my aura alone, and their last-ditch effort to kill their lackeys and leave me with nothing fails as well. The last thing they hear before they pass out on the cold ground is my slow footsteps toward them and the swift swing of a fiery sword cutting through their helmets. Use absorption. Skill. Bloodweaver. Legendary grade. Yes. No. Use absorption. Skill. Poison mist. Legendary grade. Yes. No. I choose yes on both options, and absorb a few million MCP from my legendary absorption perk too. Then, turn around to take the pink barrier down around the men that watched me kill their bosses without any trouble. I peer down into the open underground bunker in the center of the square and mutter to myself while doing a routine scan with enemy detection and my all-seeing eye while my mana control is already being released at such a high rate. I was hoping for a more interesting fight, but I guess that will have to wait for Dash. Mid-sentence, my gaze turns to the sky off in the direction of Sector 1. I feel the same sensation of being watched as I did when the bunker opened. I sense 6 figures approaching. 5 dark suits of armor that look just like the Royal Guards fly through the sky in a triangular formation. At their front is a suit of jet black armor almost twice as large as the rest. Its gaze is pointed directly at me from over a kilometer away. I feel a wave of telepathy hit me and a familiar static voice enters my mind that I haven't heard since talking to one of the 12 remaining Dark Guards in the arena back in Valor City. The Dark One missed you in the arena last night. We were wondering where you went off to hide. Chapter 440. The static voice echoes in my head as the 6 black armored guards float in the air closer toward me. It looks like you've begun to clean up the Sector 2 leader's mess for us. How thoughtful. As they get closer, I'm positive this is the exact same guard that talked to me in the arena. At that time, its speed and power far surpassed mine. The mental image of it blipping in and out of existence faster than my eyes could see, and it telling me that the Wraith I defeated was the weakest of the 13 Dark Guards is a memory that has not left the forefront of my mind. It has been lingering in my subconscious throughout all of the training inside the Titan's domain both times since I fought one of these monsters last. Even while using my full strength and even the help of my Red Hydra's buff, I left that match in a very weak state. However, I'm a far different fighter now than I was then. To them, it has barely been 2 days, but to me, I've been training and absorbing more mana and chi for almost a year. I feel the telepathy link gets severed between us, and the largest guard motions a hand forward toward me. One of the more human-sized sets of armor comes floating my way at over twice the speed of the others behind it in the rigid formation. The eye slit in its armor begins to glow orange, and I see 2 orbs of familiar black energy forming in both of its hands. As it plummets down toward the town, I make the split decision to jump high into the sky using air steps to put distance between everything below me. Before I even get 20 meters into the sky, the black orbs that gave me so much trouble in the arena come shooting my way. I manage to get a full inspect and appraisal reading on only the approaching guard. Everyone else is too far away and their concealment items are too strong for me to get any kind of efficient data. Everything on the approaching corrupted Royal Guard says access denied other than its level rating at LV 835 and a Curse of the Lich King mark in its buff section. My eyes widen, and I immediately activate all my buffs that don't overly consume mana while imbuing my sword with chi. This is a higher level than the Wraith that was the so-called weakest Dark Guard. With the reappearance of the same kind of magic as well as the identical soul energy buff, I'm assuming this is at least the 12th in line. Once I reach the height of about 100 meters above the city square, the approaching Dark Guard's 2 orbs of energy curve downward and accelerate even more as its wielder already begins to form 2 more attacks in its hands following close behind. I grip my blade and watch the orbs approach, but can't help but to smile beneath my flaming mask as the orbs look like they're traveling in slow motion to me right now. I want to laugh out loud while easily air-stepping around the motion-tracking orbs, activating extreme speed and using my immense increase in mana control and wind magic upgrade to easily swerve and glide through the air to avoid the two attacks. I still have my chi barrier on, limiting my mana control to 50% of its full strength, and the ease at which I'm able to dodge and keep an eye on the approaching black armored knight is quite surprising. The last time I faced these orbs using 100% of my mana control with my Red Hydra's buff activated, it was barely enough for me to slip away. Now it's hardly a warm-up. It lets out 2 more orbs of dark energy my way, and finally gets close enough to me that I can see it hovering and watching me dodge without having to use my enemy detection perk to see it from afar. Once 4 orbs are chasing me through the skies, I speed up my air steps and make my dodges slowly drift in the direction of my enemy. I'm well aware if one of these energy balls is pierced open, the orange energy inside that leaks out is not pretty. I remember feeling it burn through my soul energy buff, armor, mana shielding, and skin with ease. A repeat of that event is not what I'm aiming for here. I lock my eyes onto the chest plate of the Dark Guard that is now beginning to conjure 2 more orbs and focus all my active perception skills strength into my all-seeing eye. A wave of energy pierces through the dense black material and I sense the presence of an orange beating heart. Taking a deep breath, I aim my sword directly at it, then concentrate on channeling the majority of my available chi to surround my blade rather than using it for defensive measures. I'm confident that I'm fast enough to dodge its orbs of energy, and I'm not getting any particularly strong barrier readings from its armor other than the appraisal blocking perks and a high B-grade mana shielding attribute. So, I air-step forward and make my move, making full advantage of the crimson thread of my swordsmanship skill, and activating surges of intimidation building stronger with every stride. The new orbs of black matter get larger in its hands that it holds above its head, but my perception of reality is far quicker than it has the ability to process. In what feels like just the blink of an eye, I cut the distance between us down to less than an arm's length and swing my sword white-hot with chi directly through the creature's upper torso. It doesn't even have a moment to react. The blade slices through its armor like butter, and I feel trace amounts of my chi being burned away as it sinks into the black veil of energy beneath that makes up its body. However, it's not near enough to stop the sharp edge of my sword crack its ribcage and puncture the orange beating heart. The author's content has been appropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. The instance I feel the blade comes out the backside of its chest plate, I follow through with vigor and activate extreme speed to dash past to its backside, cutting all the way through. I channel the majority of my chi back to defense once my blade leaves its body and turn my head to watch all 6 orbs of energy twist out of control and explode without anyone to hold them. Level up, 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 level up. I hit level 692, but let its armor and body fall to the city below as I have more important things to worry about right now. My attention shifts back to the formation of approaching guards, and see that they're less than half a kilometer from me now. In the gaze of my enemy detection perk, I watch the leader give the same hand motion to attack as before, but this time all 4 of the remaining guards fly forward with energy orbs forming above their hands. Their speed is a bit more impressive than the guard that just attacked me, and once all 4 of them get within about 100 meters of me and release 8 orbs of explosive soul energy my way, I manage to get a reading on their levels. 2 come curving around on my left and right sides, clocking in at LV 847 and LV 871. Then, 1 comes soaring through the air right toward me down the middle at LV 901. Lastly, a final attacker floats upward, preparing to make an attack on me from above while I'm busy with the other 3. Is at LV 944. I smile even wider, using the same style of dodging and swerving to take on the barrage of explosive orbs while they get information. The attacks from the 2 guards that come at me from the left and right aren't hard to dodge, however, the middle and upper guards' orb speed is noticeably quicker and the energy output on them is much more intense than the ones before it. I let out a bit more of my mana control, now using 2/3 of my true strength to use my extreme speed and buffing skills with greater ease. As I twist my body, and the first round of orbs flies by, The guards on my sides are now less than 10 meters away. With my all-seeing eye on full blast, these wraith skeletal structures and glowing hearts are all as clear as day to me. The two closest guards release another round of orbs, while the higher levels ones wait to make their move while closing in. I control my breathing and activate swordsmanship. A crimson thread forms from the tip of my blade in a wide crescent formation that aims straight through two of the monster's glowing hearts. Again, I shift my chi barrier's density to the striking portion of my blade and glide through the air full of confidence. While dodging each orb that comes my way by a hair, my sword slices through the armor of both dark guards on my left and right side with little resistance, destroying their hearts and setting off a chain reaction of explosions in the air, detonating every single orb of energy, including the ones sent by the two remaining guards. Level up, 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 level up. I gain 15 levels, hitting level 707. However, the two remaining dark guards don't mourn their fallen partners one bit, and use the clouds of disappearing soul energy to their advantage. The highest level guard that hovers above me, holding both hands above its head, charges up a single orb of dark energy. The moment I notice it, the creature lets it go and rockets down at me. I can hear it buzz and crackle, sensing well over 4 times as much raw soul energy as any other orb I've seen today in a single attack. Swirls of hot yellow-orange light come out of small cracks as this orb was created as a finishing move designed to take me out in a single hit. I increase my speed and air step quickly out of the way, hoping to dodge. However, the only direction I think to move in is the direction of a cloud of fading soul energy, where the other guard comes out holding 2 highly charged orbs of energy itself while it stares me down and increases its forward momentum toward me even more. With a hot ball of mass curving downward from above, trying to hit me in the back, and a hyper-focused dark guard at my front ready to take me out with any means necessary, a plan comes to mind. I take down my entire chi barrier that suppresses my mana and make sure to only channel this excess energy into my movement speed, increased soul energy senses, and the attack power imbued into my sword. Then, take a moment to allow the orb of energy to get closer to my back, while lunging forward to make it seem as if I'm running away at full speed. I burst into a flashy display of advanced fire magic to ramp up a distraction, and air-step forward right at the dark guard that points its 2 hands with orbs of energy fully charged and ready to release at close range my way. The closer I get, the more I slow down, but prepare to use 100% of my mana control and buffs at the last moment to make my move. I can feel the heat of the orb on my back through my lowered defenses, and the sight of the guard in front of me is less than 5 meters away. 4, 3, 2, 1. I count down under my breath. I activate stealth the moment I'm less than half a meter away, then duck down and use extreme speed to fully conceal myself and slice through the creature's armor, rupturing its heart myself to get the level gains. Then, focus on my swordsmanship while air-stepping upward in the direction of the remaining guard with a magnificent explosion of supercharged soul energy below me. I stab my sword straight through the last dark guard's heart and deactivate stealth right in front of it, staring into the slit in its helmet while its glowing orange energy fades away. Level up, 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 level up. My level reaches 737, and the guard's armor and bones fall to the city below. I want to see if they've all dropped the same essence that I got after destroying the heart of the Wraith in the arena, but I know I'll have time for that once the danger is gone. My head turns to the final dark guard as the remnants of soul energy fade, and the scratchy static telepathic voice hits my inner ear from less than 300 meters away. I'm impressed. All I asked them to do was to bring you to me, but it seems you were holding back quite a bit in the arena, weren't you? There's a pause and a stillness in the air as the remaining dark guard floats my way, but doesn't increase its speed at all. More than 10 seconds pass, and I try to use my inspect and appraisal skill on its armor, but nothing comes back. Even using my all-seeing eye at its full power, I still get glitched numbers and letters back that are on the verge of changing, but never show me their true value. Speaks again. You may have bested the lower 6 dark guards, but I'm here to bring you back to the dark one. You are still no match for the upper 7. We have all ranked up more than once. You cannot defeat me in your current form. Come with me now, or I will assume you have chosen death. As the black suit of armor gets within 100 meters of me, it reaches for its helmet and begins to take it off. A bright orange light shines out from underneath, and my inspect skill finally registers a number. LV 1082.